Time being 6:15, I call to order the City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting for March 5th, 2026. This is our regular City Council meeting for the beginning of the month. And Ryan, would you please take a roll call?
Mayor Dame.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski. Councilor Townsley. Councilor Schmal. Councilor Weimer. Councilor Schachter. Councilor Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ryan. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Not at this time. We did have some earlier changes, and we did pull off a couple of items of the consent agenda that we will be discussing separately after the consent agenda is approved or not approved. So no changes right now. We'll go to conflict of interests on council level with anything we're going to be talking about tonight. Also see nothing. Then we'll move into citizens appearing before council, and this is for items that are not on the agenda tonight. And I do have a list of citizens that would like to speak, and we are going to start with Ashley Stahl. Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in city limits or not. And then just a quick reminder to all of you, you have 3 minutes, and please be cognizant of the time. I do not like to cut people off, but if I have to, I will. So please go ahead. Thank you.
All right, I'm Ashley Stahl, and I'm a homeowner here in the city of Glenwood Springs. Good evening, council. I speak tonight on behalf of myself, my family, and a community collective that is deeply concerned with the pattern of municipal involvement in the immigration machinery. We have discovered the unpermitted ICE detention facility operating in our city limits, heard the way in which flock surveillance data has been accessed by immigration enforcement agencies, and have learned about the city's participation in data sharing with federal immigration agencies through the SPEAR task force. This conduct appears not only unlawful, but contrary to the values and vision of our community. Yesterday, the Colorado Times Recorder published an investigative report using federal data documenting 83 people who were detained at 100 Midland Avenue between January and October of last year. This facility has been operating without a valid certificate of occupancy for the past 20 years. Today, the city released a response admitting that on February 25th, only after I brought this to public attention, inspectors found non-functioning exit and emergency lighting, no emergency evacuation procedures, 20-year-old untested fire sprinklers, and multiple building code violations. The city allowed over 83 people to be detained in this facility, likely hundreds, without any functioning emergency exits and no evacuation plan. The city admits the building has been yellow tagged since mid-2025 for sprinkler issues. Federal data shows people were being detained there during that time. Why was there no immediate enforcement? Regarding SPEAR, last week, Denver law firm Towards Justice sent a cease and desist letter to Sheriff Valerio alleging SPEAR violates Colorado law by assisting ICE with civil immigration arrests. SPEAR was supposedly created in 2022, but our police chief didn't even sign an MOU until July 2025. 3 years our city participated without a legal agreement. This council is the policy-setting board of Glenwood Springs, yet a department head unilaterally entered into a federal intelligence pipeline that violates state law. The MOU grants Sheriff Valerio's deputies full power to conduct investigations and make arrests in Glenwood Springs, and it established intelligence sharing of the detention facilities with Homeland Security Investigations, the same agency running the facility at 100 Midland. Sheriff Valerio has openly stated he will not comply with Colorado immigration law and told his deputies, "You can call me defendant in a lawsuit." Chief Darras gave operational authority over our officers. Did you authorize this? Has our city attorney reviewed whether SPEAR complies with state law? What's our liability? This is systemic failure. We demand full transparency in a public hearing regarding 100 Midland Avenue, SPEAR, and the city's involvement in immigration enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Moving on to Aaron Anderson. Please state your name for the record and whether you live in city limits or not.
Hi, my name is Erin Anderson. I use they, them pronouns. I am a resident in the city of Glenwood. I grew up in Glenwood Springs, and I have the privilege of raising my 3 children here. I've been deeply concerned about the discussion around Flock and SPEAR and ICE at the Midland Center. There are mountains of data and news stories every day about the way ICE is using and sharing that data. I think it's fair to say at this point, we all know that there is an enforcement removals operation office happening in Glenwood Springs, right next to the Social Security office. Largely, what I've been hearing from our local government is that the surveillance hardware from Flock and the automatic license plate readers is no way intended to be helping ICE. It's for community safety. And the unrestricted access to citizens' data is just sort of an unintended consequence. As a mom and a member of the broader rapid response community, I just want to make sure we're being clear about what these unintended consequences of ICE feeling welcome and supported in our community actually look like since January 2025. It looks like a young man walking out of the courthouse and having four cars that are unmarked shut down 8th in Colorado outside the courthouse, while men with no badges, masks over their faces, and ball caps swooped him into a car, refusing to provide a warrant or identify themselves or give cards to any of the rapid response members that were trying to document what was happening. Regardless of what that man's business at the courthouse was, our local judiciary allowed him to walk out those doors and be in our community. Complying with court orders shouldn't come with the risk of being taken into custody by ICE. It looks like a mom and dad taking their 2 girls to school at Glenwood Springs School one morning on their way home and on their way back to their house, having their car surrounded by law enforcement and their windows smashed in, and the dad taken away and ultimately deported after months and months in detention at Geo and Aurora. Those girls are still in these Glenwood Springs schools, presumably with your kids, our kids, mine. It looks like moms calling 911 to report their missing preteen and having our local cops ultimately hand the mom over to ICE and not help find the missing 13-year-old. She was deported on Thanksgiving. Last week, a man was taken outside the courthouse, had a panic attack at the ICE facility on 100 Midland Avenue. The Glenwood Springs Fire Department responded and he was taken to Valley View, and he is now at Geo because he attended court. These are unacceptable unintended consequences. I don't believe that anyone here is okay with this or this being the legacy that we leave behind on Glenwood. There's so much risk and uncertainty and cost and so little gain. What community safety are we talking about? I have never experienced and sat with more fear from moms and children in our community. I'm white and have the privilege of being able to come here and speak with you and go home to my babies tonight.
I appreciate your comments, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you very much. Next is, I'm thinking it's Zodi Woolsey.
Hello, my name is Zodi Woolsey and I live in Glenwood Springs.
Thank you.
I'm here today to talk about kind of the stuff going on. A city official recently responded, "We are learning as we go," in a written email, which I think is a really great start to something that feels really horrifying to me and feels like a lack of care about our public here locally. The city makes decisions that are very crucial to our safety and our children's safety and just everyone in this area, right? And learning as you go should never be something that is acceptable when dealing with the safety of the public. You should consult with professionals beforehand before making decisions like installing Flock. You should talk to professionals about the security practices of the companies that you're interfacing with. You should not allow officers to come up and state that data breaches did not happen because it was private information. Last time I was here, I brought up that there were 2 data breaches of Flock, one of which is hardware, which the officer agreed. And he also made a dismissive remark after the fact stating that the other data breach did not happen, which is not true. It is private information. And just because you don't know that something happened does not mean that you can sit here and claim that it has never happened. It is a real concern for our safety. Furthermore, I think the conduct of the people who have access to this data is really awful. Lou Valerio has posted many conspiratorial and racist remarks on his social media. He has stated things that are simply just not things that I would think someone who has access to my literal location should be saying online. It shows that he is not of sound mind, just like the Flock people who claim that they have no security issues after multiple issues have been brought up by many, many states in many different situations. And as a software engineer, of over 13 years. I started writing code when I was 13, and I used to work for companies with teams and manage teams that spanned the globe. I have worked with all kinds of people from all kinds of places, and this is a conduct that would honestly have gotten me fired. Not properly doing an audit before implementing a system, not doing the research about the security practices of a company before we implement their systems would have gotten me fired. In fact, it would have completely exited me from the field entirely. And I think that that same conduct should not be allowed in situations like this that are arguably a lot more dangerous and damaging than a casino company that sells casinos to or casino machines to every casino on the planet. This is much more dangerous. So in my opinion, Flock has showed, including our local sheriff and law enforcement, that they are not trustworthy with this information. And I think that the city officials should take more effort in screening and interviewing these services and these things before they implement them. For one, I also last time brought up that an audit would be a good idea, and it was stated that there was a public audit, which I did access and read, which was lackluster, as it was not even available. It not even had didn't even have the same amount of data as a
And
publicly
there's the
available
ring.
third-party
There's your
agent.
time. Thank you very much
Yeah, thank
for
you.
your comments. Jamie LaRue, please.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, my name is Jamie LaRue. I'm the executive director of the Garfield County Libraries, and it happens I reside in Glenwood. I thought I'd start with a little good news. Recently, you may have heard we conducted a survey of all Garfield County voters, which is about 800 of them. And 80% of those voters told us that they approve the library, good approval rating. 6% do not. I thought that was very heartened by all that. And 67% support a proposed mill levy extension. We have one that's due to expire next year. So we got the clear message for our voters. They like what we're doing and they want us to maintain our services. I'm here because there's some bad news, and that's Jim Mann, who is the town manager for Silt, has proposed in public, without talking to us first, that the county should put a countywide sales tax vote up for a vote and redirect $2 million of the money that comes to us to fund mass transit between Rifle and Newcastle. I call it highway robbery. If the SILT measure were to pass, we have two outcomes. If our own mill levy passes as well, we'll still lose $400,000 a year. And if the SILT measure passes and ours fails, we lose $3 million, and that's about 30% of our income. We know that the voters don't want this. It doesn't make sense to us that countywide library funds should be redirected for bus service between Silt and Newcastle. Libraries and transit are separate, and their funding should be separate. Silt and Rifle voters rejected paying for this bus service. It doesn't make sense to cut library funding for the entire county to provide them a service they rejected, and Glenwood, Carbondale, and Newcastle voted for it. So the library doesn't have extra money to start funding public transit service. Our budget practices are extremely conservative and careful. We manage our funds to keep our books, collection, and technology up to date, to keep our buildings safe, clean, and well-maintained, to attract and retain enough qualified librarians to support our community, and to keep our library hours open for our communities. Why am I here? To first update you about all that stuff, and then ask that if you could, to consider a resolution opposing this money grab, or if you can't do that, to at least put it, a word into the ear of county commissioners when you talk to them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for the update. Don Gillespie, please. State your name for the record, whether you live in city limits, please.
You don't start the time until after I say my name, right?
I can do that. Okay, start now. No, I'm just kidding.
Doug Gillespie, Glenwood Springs. The other night I watched the P&Z hearing on the 24 units that are going to be installed in a parking lot there off 8th Street. And I thought maybe the DDA had gotten rid of this guideline that you didn't have to provide parking. So what I'd like to bring up tonight is maybe the council should revisit with the DDA some of these guidelines. I don't know if they're legally obligated to do it. They'll not have to provide parking, but what comes to mind is there's a lot of parking lots here in town. that could be awful attractive to some builders. That if they can go in there and build and not have to provide parking, and parking's kind of a premium downtown. So I'm just asking you guys, is there some way to change that particular guideline? And when I think about parking, I think about the other thing that, and maybe Carl knows this, but 1.5 cars per unit. I went back and researched, that goes back to the 1960s when they were hurting for developments and wanted to make it a little easier on the developers to provide housing. But I think we're past the 1960s. But for some reason, we're still using 1.5 cars per unit. And I wonder if there's a way to get that off the books. And the other deal is the constant battle for affordable housing. And we're living in a town where it's not affordable. And I kind of wonder about the meaning when you say we want to build affordable housing. Is it really affordable? And I just don't see that's a winning cause. And I'd rather see the money go to the fire department or the police department for housing of people that we need to service this community, because right now we're underserviced. And I cannot support building new houses just for affordable housing, because there really is not such a thing that I know of. That's all I got on my mind right now.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thanks for being here. Pat Helling, please. Please also state your name for the record and whether you live in city limits or not.
My name's Pat Helling. I live on Woodbury Drive. I wanted to thank you guys for the open house that you had above the library. I think that was a great thing to do. And I'm hoping that you could do 2 or 3 of those, because it's a lot more comfortable to speak that way than in a formal meeting. And then also I have a few complaints. I know that we have ordinances in Glenwood Springs but they're not being enforced. So I agree with Dawn that the police need more money or whatever it takes. The traffic on Grand Avenue and the speeding still is just out of control. At 27th Street, every time I'm going into town, I stop and I see the cars running red lights, one after another after another. And the noise ordinance, I can hear Jake brakes late at night. Woodbury Drive is the noisiest place I have ever lived. I've lived in Glenwood for 60 of my 70 years. And I hear Jake brake trucks at night, and I hear they do a drag race thing where they go down South Grand Avenue, they turn on 27th Street, go back on Grand Avenue, and keep doing that late at night. And I have been trying to deal with the code enforcement officers, and it just seems like they have an attitude. I've had barking dogs issues, and then I've called, there's been a car abandoned over on the old Rivers property. I went over and kind of looked at it, and it's been there, I know, at least a month. I've seen snow on it and snow melt. And so I called the police, I think it was about 2 or 3 days ago, and said I wanted to report a car that maybe is stolen. The plates are expired. And I said, could you have an officer call me back afterwards to see what he found out? So the policeman called me and he said, do you own that property? And I said, no. And he said, then what's your beef with it? And I said, well, there's a car that maybe is stolen. I don't know what happened, but the plates are expired and it's just sitting there. And he said, well, the owner said he wants the cars. He doesn't care if the cars are parked there. He said, what's your beef with that? And I said, well, I was thinking maybe Nancy Guthrie's in there. And he said, I don't know who Nancy Guthrie is, but it's just kind of, I get an attitude. And I've had issues with the barking dogs over at Wanderlust. And the last time, I finally quit calling. I've called probably 30 times about the barking dogs, and my whole neighborhood is upset about it.
And I appreciate your comments, but the 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Linda McKinley, please. State your name for the record in the microphone and whether you live in city limits or not.
Linda
please.
McKinley, and I do live within the city limits.
Thank you.
And I second Pat for your event you had. It was very informative, and I think you've probably learned a lot. I was surprised at how many people, so I hope you do it again. Now my time. So I've lived and worked in Glenwood Springs for nearly 50 years. During that time, I've owned and operated 2 businesses and raised my daughter here. She still lives here. Glenwood has been my home for most of my life, so I care deeply about its future. Over the years, I've watched our city grow and change. Growth is a natural part of any community, and when it's done thoughtfully, it can bring positive results. However, many longtime residents are feeling concerned about the direction that growth is taking and how it may be affecting the quality of life that has always made Glenwood such a special place. My question to council and city staff is this: when growth projects come before you, what filters are used in evaluating them? Of course, projects must meet our municipal codes and planning requirements, but I hope there's also discussion about how projects will impact the broader community. Things like neighborhood character, quality of life, and the long-term feel of our town. Another concern many residents share relates to infrastructure. As our community grows, it's important that we carefully consider the impact on services such as water, sewer, trash collection, law enforcement, fire protection, and traffic. These systems are essential to maintaining the level of service and livability that residents expect. When voters elected you, they entrusted you with helping guide Glenwood's future and making thoughtful decisions about how our community develops and grows. Most importantly, you were elected to represent and serve the residents of Glenwood Springs. The people who live here, raise families here, run businesses here, and rely on the city's services every day. While developers, outside businesses, and others may have interests in our community, your responsibility is first and foremost to the citizens who elected you. I've heard more than a few longtime residents say they feel Glenwood is losing some of the special character and charm that drew many of us here decades ago. My hope is simply that as decisions are made moving forward, there is continued attention not only to growth, but to preserving the qualities that make Glenwood such a unique and wonderful place to live. Thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Don Dexter. Please state your name for the record and whether you live in city limits or not.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me okay? Dawn Dexter. I live in Newcastle, but I work and my grandchildren go to school in Glenwood Springs. My husband works in Glenwood Springs, and we dine and shop in Glenwood Springs several times a week, every week.
Thank you.
So good evening, Glenwood, or hello, Glenwood. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I make my own comments, I'd like to echo Jamie's comments about the library funding. Libraries are one of the most civilized parts of our civilization. In his book on freedom, Timothy Snyder outlined 5 positive freedoms: sovereignty, unpredictability, mobility, factuality, and solidarity. Libraries contribute to all 5 of these. Well, 4. Public transportation contributes to mobility. I also support public transportation, but I don't think it should come at the expense of library funding. So I support everything Jamie said. In another of his books, Mr. Snyder urges us to beware of paramilitaries. That is in his book on tyranny. And I've come to urge you, Council, to use all means at your disposal to close the ICE detention facility in West Glenwood, end Glenwood Springs Police Department's involvement with Spear as it relates to ICE, and to end its contract and to end your contract with flock cameras and remove them from our community. We have friends, coworkers, my grandchildren's classmates who are genuinely terrified because people are being taken by ICE from their driveways, store parking lots, court appearances where they showed up because they were trying to follow the law. Kids have had parents deported. Families have suddenly lost income earners that support their children. A teacher at my grandchild's school recently shared that they had to comfort a small child who was worried that their grandmother would be taken. It's difficult for children to learn and for us to work and function and shop and dine with these kinds of fears happening. And it's not just happening to brown people in our community. It's happening to people who disagree with this administration. And I know the council's powers are limited in terms of what you can do in the face of the federal government, but you can end any of the city's cooperation with ICE. And I feel like that we all have a duty to throw the sand into the gears of rising authoritarianism whenever we can. With 33 seconds left, I'd just like to urge you to do whatever you can to close that ICE facility in West Glenwood, end your contract with Flock, and end Glenwood Springs Police Department's interactions with Spear as it relates to ICE. And I thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. And Sally Boughton. Please state your name and whether you live in city limits.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sally Boughton. I don't live in Glenwood city limits, but I'm here almost every day and I consider it to be part of my community. I recently learned about the immigration detention facility being operated secretively out of the commercial building at 100 Midland Avenue. I was shocked and dismayed to know that this is part of our community landscape. Digging into the story, I learned that many occupants in the other units at 100 Midland had no idea the space was being used as a detention facility. Data just released in an investigation by the Colorado Times Recorder shows that over 10 months last year, 83 people were held in that facility, the longest stay being 2 days in a cold cement room that lacked essential safety infrastructure. The oldest person to be held there was 61 years old. The youngest was 18. These hold rooms are tucked away in spaces across Colorado and across the country. And over the last year, they've been used in increasingly cruel ways. One person was held in a Frederick hold room for over a month. Another was held at the Denver hold room, whose location is currently unknown, for 39 days. A report by The Guardian in the fall of last year showed there are at least 170 hold rooms across the country where there's little oversight and an increased risk of human rights abuses. And one of them is in our backyard, and it has been for over 20 years. While no one deserves to be held in an unsafe facility against their will, evidence shows that the people going through this facility are not hardened criminals, not the worst of the worst, but largely people who have been living in our communities with 0 criminal offenses on their records. The people being treated so inhumanely are our neighbors, our friends, our family, members of our community. This is a blight on our community, and it is one that the public has been largely unaware of. The city has just issued a news release that completely abdicates responsibility for their part in enabling this facility to be an unsafe holding cell for the last 20 years. The city admits that it has lacked critical safety infrastructure for decades, but calls their gross negligence an error and an administrative oversight. I urge you, council, don't just sweep this under the rug. I'm requesting full transparency from the city in this manner in the form of full disclosure of all records relating to the facility and a public hearing. The community deserves to know what has taken place under our noses for 2 decades. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. This concludes the citizen comment list for the signups. Anybody else here that would like to comment before I close the public portion? Please come forward. Okay, I see none. No, we're not doing that. No, we're not taking, we're still not taking online comments. If you have something to say, we urge you to come in and speak to us, well, or email, that's correct, directly. So anyway, closing the public portion, which was item 4 on the agenda. I'm bringing it back to council for comments to any of the comments we heard. Councillor Townsley, we'll start with you.
Just think, one thing, when Pat came up and was talking to us about the dogs, she's contacted me about this, so I've got just a little bit. She had given us a letter that there were quite a few signatures on, not just hers, and I passed that along to Steve. along with some other comments about the gentleman that's running that facility. So I think this is more than a case of just a barking dog or something like that. So hopefully we'll look at that, be able to get back to her and
We have
And-
some.
I'm gonna have to, sorry, yeah,
But
public
just-
comments
just
is
to find out
over.
that-
Thank you, though.
she's given me all the knowledge and I've passed it on to Steve. So I just hope we'll look into that. They had to get a special use permit for that and
Right.
it doesn't look like they're really holding up their end of the bargain. So just thought
Okay.
I'd pass on a little bit more there.
Thank you. Counselor Schachter.
I don't want you to cringe, Mr. Mayor, but I have to comment on a couple things.
Please go.
I don't often like to be up here reacting to public comment, appearing defensive, but I want to make two comments. One has to do with fellow longtime residents. And I'm going to give you my perspective, not necessarily council's, although if you follow what's going on, if you follow the comp plan, if you follow the code, and some know more than others, everything most of you are asking for is constantly in the process of evaluation, trying to make Glenwood better for its residents. Glenwood will never be what it was. The traffic is not our control. The affordability may not be our control, but I will say sometimes we lose sight of, if we go back 50 years, we have healthcare like we've never had before. We have services and retail that people cried for 50 years ago that we never had before. We have a diverse community that we never had before. So let's not lose sight of going forward rather than going backwards. That's all I'll say right now. And everything people are asking for is in the process, whether it be through commissions, through public service, through the council. Please don't ever assume that this diverse group up here is not trying to look after the residents of the community. We just may not always agree what that looks like, and that's critical. And dialogue's important. I am going to digress or shift over now to a frustration of mine regarding ICE and flock and surveillance. Without saying right or wrong, without representing council, as one of the council people here, I don't like being up here and being what I feel is late to the game and fairly uninformed. Not due to any of our staff, but just due to how quickly stuff is unfolding. And I don't like that. I don't like the fact that things we used to take as benign are no longer benign, and nationally they are out of our control to a great extent. And they've become issues that we never anticipated. I don't like the fact that we might be, by association rather than deed, by association with other law enforcement entities, that the trust and the respect and the good deeds that our local department has done is becoming tainted. I also, by association with others, I don't know how to deal with this, but I feel based on what we've seen the last 3 or 4 meetings, we need to be more proactive. Perhaps we do need a more public forum about these connected issues and some articulation, some more specific articulation of our values and goals regarding what's happening nationally that's impacting us locally and to the extent we can deal with it. We should be more proactive than reactive. I'm up here frustrated without answers, and I usually don't comment to the public like this, but this has compelled me to. So thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Any other comments? Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Perhaps a small thing and perhaps one that's obvious. As thoroughly sympathetic as I am with all of the comments I heard tonight, one little procedural thing is just to be sure it's clear that the Garfield County Sheriff's Department is separate from the city government. I appreciate hearing from all perspectives and all of your experience, but be sure that you take your comments about that particular operation to the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? I got one of the comments raised the question for me, and I'm just curious, just a quick clarification, Mr. Gillespie, I don't believe the DDA has a say over the parking requirements for downtown. It is the GID, the General Improvement District, that regulates our parking. And
If I may, just to clarify on that, the city code doesn't require parking downtown. The reason for that is because there's a general improvement district, which was instituted in the 80s. Certainly that's something the council could look at changing. That's just been how it has been handled over time. The GID was supposed to fund public parking projects in the downtown area, and that's kind of the history on.
And that was going to be the end of my question, is when did the GID come into effect? And
Yeah,
it was in the 80s.
It was in the 80s.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that it's the GID that does not require the parking. So any other comments, or is anybody from staff would like to comment on anything you heard? Just no.
Yeah, we've heard the comments and we understand where people are coming from.
Right.
We're working on it.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And I, for one, I have to also echo that. And I heard all of you. I heard exactly what you said. And to Councilor Schachter's comments, yeah, we do care. We really do. But it's not easy to look at these certain specific issues that really are out of our hands. But we heard you, and I think that's a start. So I like the sand in the gears, so that's a start. So we'll see what can happen. So anything else, Mayor Pro Tem? Please.
Yeah, I think I was just gonna reiterate what Mayor Dem said. I have a great appreciation for the integrity of our law enforcement locally. We've had a lot of conversations internally about how we are functioning and operating. Not everything is within the control of us as individuals. However, philosophically, I think that you're correct. We have a higher obligation and we will find those opportunities whenever we can. And I appreciate these ongoing conversations. Things are changing rapidly. It's a whole landscape that I'm unfamiliar with. And this is a really incredibly awkward position to be in. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all your comments. Thanks for being here tonight. We really appreciate you guys coming out on a Thursday night. I'm sure you have better things to do, but thank you for being here. Thank you to council for the responses. With that, I'll move into item number 5, which is council announcements. And whoever lights up first gets to go first. We'll see none. We'll move into the, I know, I was just going too fast. Councilor Smith.
Thank you very much. Quick review of advisory commissions and boards that I've monitored. Historic Preservation Commission met on Monday and built an expanding list of historic structures within the city and within the fire protection district that they believe should be on there's a priority list that this new fire response plan that the fire marshal described to us a few weeks ago, and they're adding to that list with historic structures. They also noted that there is a pair of lectures on Hispanic Western Slope history at the library next week, March 11th. One is at 11 o'clock in the morning in English. One is at 3 p.m. in the afternoon in Spanish, both same program. I think it's going to be pretty fascinating. Transportation Commission met on Tuesday, modified, kind of updated and affirmed their approval of a list of infrastructure and policy needs that the city should implement before investing in or approving bike share programs. So that's out there. It's currently sitting with staff. They did not send it to City Council directly because staff will be composing a proposal eventually on the bike share, and that'll be part of it. If the council would like to see that list, easily arranged. They also had they kind of a continuing, but they really got into a discussion about shared path safety, about paved trail safety and the issue of electrified support bikes, e-assist bicycles. and the range of those. I thought it was a particularly creative discussion, starting to come up with some actually implementable ideas. They'll take that on again next month. Councilor Zelinski had made them aware that other entities in the valley are also doing this about now. So there's going to be a lot of coordination. I reminded them of that. And indeed, the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority at its last board meeting specifically set up a task force, or they're creating that and going to have an involvement from all the communities. So our own Transportation Commission's information, I think, is going to contribute to that nicely. They are beginning to engage on the Transportation Commission on potential comments or recommendations to the council regarding RAFTA's evolving long-range work plan for one thing, and then kind of as a subset of that, the MOVE study phase 2 implementation. So they're really chewing off some topics. They also took an action. They formally passed a resolution urging the city through city council and otherwise to actively investigate implementation of paid parking in the downtown area, with careful sensitivity to potential impacts on residential neighborhoods nearby. They didn't specify when, but they really want to get that conversation cranked up again. In the course of that discussion, there was a lot of talk about really getting after enforcement of existing traffic regulations, which is, I think, the council's current position, is do that for a while first. So they were just reinforcing their strong interest in that. A fun little side note, I think we all received an email message or a string of email messages from the Parks and Recreation Department, where a woman wrote or called staff at the community center saying, "I wish you had more activities for seniors." She's 93. She's looking for recreational activities at 93, which is, bless her, a great thing. I was particularly impressed with the email responses that the park staff put together, and I talked to each of those two staffers this morning. And they are so enthused about how thorough a job they did on outlining the 2 pages of activities that are available for seniors, that they're going to put it into some sort of publicity campaign and literature that can be further distributed, that I think the city headquarters can help with. Finally, put on your desk a sample or a draft letter, which is being circulated by Colorado Communities for Climate Action, of which Glenwood Springs is a member, to whom I'm your delegate to their board of directors. They're asking for co-signing of this letter or a final version of it. It's a bit convoluted in its introductory paragraphs, but the punchline is it's addressing the governor and the state legislature. We urge you to enact policies that establish reasonable guardrails for data center development, focusing on protecting residents, public safety, environment. Didn't want to, even as a board member, sign that without checking in with you first. So if you want to give responses sometime tonight, that'd be helpful. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I think you should bring it up during council comments. That's usually the time when we can discuss these kind of things. So we'll do it then. Councillor Townsley, please.
Well, he stole some of my thunder from Parks and Rec, but that's okay. I also told Tiffany I thought she did a wonderful job with those letters back and forth with Joan. So, and I think she's 94. I could be wrong, but I think she's 94. And we actually had the pleasure last night. The art center is now done. All the renovations that have been done over there. We had a chance to go tour all the facilities. What they've done is it looks different on the outside. It looks like, okay, we've staved off the maintenance property of that for a long, long time. But when you go inside, it's actually really incredible. The floors have been redone. The spaces have been redone. The amount of activities and programs that they have over there is amazing. The old garage door that used to have the rainbow on it now goes up. Kids have a place to go in there and have a rock band, complete with guitars that are being provided, amps, everything that's there. The Clay Center looked incredible. There were 3 people in there working last night at 8 o'clock. nice offices upstairs. I think Steve has one of the nicest offices in the city up there. It's tucked away somewhere, but a really good facility. I'd encourage everybody to go over and take a look at it. Tiffany did give us a list of all the programs they had, and it is, my list was single spaced versus paragraphs, and it is very long what they have, what they give. Hope we can afford to keep it all, but it's pretty amazing. So shout out to all of them.
Hey, thank you. Counselor Schmall, please.
The Financial Advisory Board met last week, and they're considering options for paid parking downtown and evaluating methods before taking it out to the public with any kind of input on the various options and considerations. But it is being thought about, and it'll be coming at residents before too long. So have your thoughts together. The Financial Advisory Board is also accepting grant applications, I believe, through April 1st. The information on those is on the city's website.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky.
All right, so I don't have a ton to say, but I wanted to acknowledge River Commission is doing a lot of work towards kind of incorporating data and economics with kind of, looking at, their vision, kind of a comprehensive way. And Jacob Zook, who is like a data master, came up with a whole page similar to what he does for tourism and for, the economics of Glenwood around river users and, what that looks like. And I just really want to acknowledge him for what a resource he has been to our community in so many ways. He was just recently recognized at the Chamber Gala for his contributions to tourism in Glenwood, which is an incredibly important part of our economics. And so I just really wanted to acknowledge him for all he's done. And then also, do this now?
Wait till
Okay.
approved. Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, we'll see none. Moving into the consent agenda, item 6 tonight, entertaining a motion with the consent agenda and a slight change in how we do things. From now on, we will do everything by push button vote. No more voice vote. We're moving into technology completely. So, Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky.
I move to approve the consent agenda as it is written.
Thank you. We have a motion looking for a second. Counselor Townsley.
I second that.
And a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda as it stands? Counselor Smith.
Just to note that there is a string of volunteer citizen appointments on this consent agenda, and I'm delighted to see them. Very pleased to see Adam Decker appointed for a new full term on the Transportation Commission. He is a bright light on that commission, brings a lot of out-of-the-box ideas. On the housing thing, Housing Advisory Board, Housing Commission, whatever it's going to become by title, you're about to approve 6 appointments and reappointments in combination, who together constitute a diverse, creative, professionally experienced group of people that, joining their other colleagues already are continuing on that board, really is going to contribute to some creative thinking about housing policy, housing finance, and housing imagination. So I'm delighted to see all 6 of those in. Transportation Commission still has space for an alternate because Nate Klingenstein has resigned as that position. So thanks very much to Nate for his very creative service. But there's an alternate spot open there, as well as our youth representative open. On the Housing Commission board, there is 1 full regular membership spot open for an in-town resident and 1 more alternate spot open. So we'll continue to recruit.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky.
In brief, I would like to highlight that we have amended the amount of the cap on the award, financial award for the victims and witness assistance, the veil. For the second month in a row, we haven't had a meeting because we haven't had anybody apply for assistance. And so I feel like this is an incredibly valuable and underutilized resource in our community. And so I want to actively promote that. I want to ask you all to actively promote that. There's a reason that it's there. If you have been victimized, I think that you deserve compensation. It can take the sting out of what happened. And so I would like to make sure that this feels like an accessible, available program, that it's not something that is kept under wraps. And so with increasing this award, it's kind of a little bit more commensurate with what the real costs are in today's market. But also, I think that we just really want to encourage people to make it feel like something that has value to them.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know about that. Any other comments about the consent agenda for tonight? See none, I will call for the question.
It passes unanimous.
Protest vote. But I know it was a yes.
6-1 abstention, but the abstention counts as a yes, so it passes unanimous.
Okay, we had,
Thank you.
we had a protest vote because he doesn't want to push the buttons. Okay, fair enough.
Stand in your view.
That's right. Throw that sand. Okay. Moving into our second action item tonight, Resolution 2026-04, supporting an application for down payment assistance grant from the Division of Housing. Watkins.
Good evening, Council. Watkins Folk Grace, Senior Planner and Housing Development Manager. As you all know, we've had a down payment assistance program in the city since 2025 after receiving a grant that we applied for in 2024. It's been successful. The money's almost spent down. And so this resolution that we're asking you all to pass would support us applying for another round of grants, which is due at the 1st of April. So don't have too much to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have.
All right, thank you very much for bringing this forward. Any questions to staff at this point? No, we'll see none. And Councilor Townsley, guys, you're too slow.
I'm
for
hiding
me.
down here, man.
Let's go.
So thanks for getting me the information that I was looking for on this as I've kind of pulled it off and had some questions on it. There's 2 or 3 things that I question about a little bit. And one of the main ones I think is how much do we say Denver has a better housing policy than us, and how much do we let them come over and say, here's guidelines that you have to follow as a city by taking this grant? And those are some of my big concerns with this. And you've given me a lot of information on it. I think the horse is out of the barn on a lot of these, but I just kind of want to double check and make sure we have completed the baseline. One of the couple of things that we have to do to accept this grant is we have to complete a baseline of where we are with affordable housing. That's already been done, correct?
With Proposition 123?
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've done that. What were the other, when we've given them the information they need to get the bonus that we use for fast tracking everything. And are we? No, we haven't.
So that's a separate thing.
Separate piece. Okay, I thought that was part of this because when you look up Prop 123, it shows a lot of cities have done that. So if we are going to go down this road, we might as well try to get that. And then on the 3%, we have to increase from that baseline 3% for 3 years in a row. Have we completed that already with the Vista Gardens or the project over there on the
Canyon Vista?
Canyon Vista?
No, and that would be a good topic, a good update for y'all to kind of dive into Prop 123 and our commitment there. A lot does hinge on getting the building permit issued for Canyon Vista, which hasn't happened yet. So we're not there yet to fulfilling that commitment.
What can you tell me, like what's the 3% per year equate to over 3 years or yearly or whatever?
Our commitment was to increase affordable housing as the state defines it by 65 units.
65 units.
The end of this
total, or by the end of 26?
The end of 26, 65.
Okay, so that's all 9%.
Yes.
Okay, and then how far along are we on that?
again, a lot depends on Canyon Vista. I'd have to get you the exact numbers, but we have a little ways to go, and we've had some good progress in the last few years from some of the projects that y'all have supported. I can get you those numbers later.
Okay, because I actually kind of thought that had gone through. If Canyon Vista does go through, would that meet it for us, or do we still have more that we've got to do this year?
I believe that would satisfy it.
Satisfy it. Okay.
Yeah.
Should. Okay. You know, the other thing that when they come back and they say, here's what you have to do to accept this, and there's just part of me is a little bit of a contrarian when somebody says, you know, here's some money for you, but you have to do A, B, C, and D to get it. That pushes me a little bit the wrong way. But, you know, the reporting requirements for it are fairly substantial. And I know you're just accepting this I mean, it's been dumped in your lap, so I don't expect you to, you know, you've got a lot of work on that. I wonder, you know, when we look at the program, and I guess I'm not supposed to make comments now. So you've answered my questions. I'll keep my comments to those were the questions. I've got one more, excuse me. The money that before, when we first signed up for it, was 167 from them and 75 from us, and that came from 2C. And then we revised that, and it was 350 from them and 150 from us for 2C. Is that right, or my?
Yeah, that's not quite right. I can understand why you'd see that from the grant. It was 360,000 that we got with no matching requirement.
No matching requirements. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any matching requirement on the new grant proposal that we're putting in?
No, sir.
Okay, that's going to eliminate a lot of my questions then. So, and how come that was in the original piece and it's not that way now, or where did it go wrong down that line?
To be honest, I don't know why it appears to show that in the grant agreement, but I've investigated it fully once I got in the role here, have it in writing from the administrator. You know, there is no matching requirement.
I mean, it's written in all of them, so I guess that's my question. Okay, that's it for questions.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And thank you, Watkins, for preparing all this and keeping it on the calendar. The Workforce Housing Advisory Board in several recent meetings has talked with increasing detail about the possibility of using some of its funds, among them its down payment assistance funds, in the form of a revolving loan fund instead of individual grants. So that conversation is going on. Is there anything in this grant application or in the grant requirements or limitations that would keep us from using that state money in a revolving loan fund?
There are program income guidelines from the state, and so those I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what all of them are at this point, and we probably won't be having any program income for a while, not until there's a sale of these properties among some other kind of actions. So if they meet the guidelines, then yes, but there are some guidelines for how program income can be used on this program.
But are there restrictions on using the state's money to loan down payments instead of grant down payments?
Yes. No, that okay. Now I think maybe I misunderstood your question.
It was overly verbose.
This program is for grants and not loans. So that is the purpose of this program.
So if the housing board and city council decided to use 2C money in a revolving loan fund, we'd be on our own. The state money in a similar pot would have to be used differently.
That's right. Yep. We could decide to do that with our own money.
Thank you. This is something I should know, but I'll note, as you know, one of the candidates who interviewed and just recently was approved for membership on the Housing Advisory Board, during his interview highlighted the need to be careful about offering down payment assistance in any form, lest you get people into a home happily for which they're not otherwise prepared to keep up. Maintenance, personal finance, whatever. He was giving us this warning in his interview. Are there guidelines in that way, or are there thresholds of eligibility that kind of check out people's ability to follow through in our current program?
In this down payment assistance program, the guidelines that would be in effect, they would come and they would be part of the kind of underwriting that we do. And so, yes, we do have a couple ways to ensure that people can actually afford to do it. There are minimum amounts that they have to put down, and there are debt to income guidelines, both front end and back end. And so those would be the main ways.
And those are the city's own requirements.
They're part of this program, yes, sir.
And are there similar requirements from the state, or are we just creating those?
We are using the state's requirements.
Oh, so they're the same thing.
Yes.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Counselor Schachter.
Watkins, just clarification, if you could. Is 2C fronting some of the money to be reimbursed? And if so, how's the reimbursement gone?
That is how this works. Yes, we front all the closings that happen and then get reimbursed afterwards by the state. We have 2 that are reimbursed and 2 that we are in process of.
And
So
is there any impediment to that process that we foresee?
no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley.
Two things. I thought Counselor Smith brought up a pretty good point, and you were kind of looking for a few things there, but a couple more. I mean, taxes, insurance goes up, utilities, repairs, those are all things that, I guess any homeowner looks at. So, but my other question for you that I did have was the program that we've set up and the guidelines for it, is that fed to us by the state, or is that our own program that we've set up with guidelines that we?
It comes from the state, I believe. I was not around when we set up this program initially, but my understanding is it is the state's guidelines.
Okay, if we could, I'd love to find out if that is actually the whole piece comes exactly, the pieces in there, whatever those requirements are, if those are from the state or if that's something that we generated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? See none. Thank you, Watkins. Anybody from the public like to give some input? We'll see none. We'll close the public aspect of this hearing and we'll bring it back to council. Entertaining a motion. Item 7, Resolution 2026-04, supporting an application for down payment assistance grant from the Division of Housing. Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski, please.
I would like to move to approve Resolution 2026-04, supporting an application for down payment assistance grant from the Division of Housing.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Looking for a second. Counselor Smith.
I just figured somebody else would do it, but I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on our end?
I'm
No.
still lit up. So
Well,
I'd like
that
to-
confuses me. Maybe we should turn the light off and then turn it back on.
I just want to say, I like this program so much because it's development neutral. It creates affordable housing integrated into the community in different neighborhoods, which allows for the kind of community that I want to live in and I want to see in the future. So I appreciate this very much.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley.
Appreciate that, but I disagree. And I've got a couple reasons for this, and I may be stickily out here on an island on my own, but anyway, a couple things. There's been some pieces here that make me feel better about this tonight. If they've given us these guidelines and these aren't our own particular guidelines, I don't like them. When you go out to shop for a house, the house has to be vacant or owner occupied. So again, when you start looking at things where we're picking winners and we're picking, okay, this guy's going to do really well, this girl's going to do really well with it. I'm not trying to be sexist up here, but we're picking winners and losers here, and we're choosing things that are none of them are bad. I mean, there's nothing on here that I say this is a bad thing, but I just don't know if it's our position with tax dollars to pick this. When you say, okay, the property has to be vacant, I understand that we don't want to take somebody out of their house, but if you're a realtor and you're showing somebody houses, we're saying, okay, you can look at these, but you can't look at these. Does the owner of that house then have to go, okay, I'll kick my renter out so that I can sell it because I know I've got something that really fits into the guidelines of this program really well, and I want to be able to take care of those buyers. If it's for affordable housing, it's better. If it's for, I'm really happy to see that we're not using 2C funds in it, because that was where, if we're using 2C funds and we're saying, okay, you have to be a first-time home buyer. Again, affordable housing, workforce housing, why a first-time buyer? Why not a guy that, moved here 2 years ago, had sold a house in Virginia, now he's here, he's in workforce housing, and we're saying, you're not eligible for the program. Same thing with priority for first generation or buyers. It's a good thing. I love it. I just don't think it's our job as the government to get involved with just saying, we're going to do programs that are coming from money that's being taken from everybody and go, let's pick some winners here. I don't like the fact in there that somebody can keep 25% of it or 25,000 of their own cash. You know, essentially what that means, if my kid came to me and said, I want to borrow some money from you to buy a house, and he says, I need 100,000 and I know he's got 25,000 in the bank. I say, well, use yours and, you know, we'll talk about the 75, which you're not going to get from me anyway. But, you know, he comes back and says, no, I want to use all your money and keep my 25,000. And there's some reasons for that, doing that as far as affordability. But again, I think those aren't things that I think are a good plan. So those are the actual program itself. I don't like those. If those are being fed to us by the state's giving the money, we've met the requirements for it, I could probably support it anyway. The other thing that I don't think anybody's looking at is what happens with this program down the road when we've got 10 of these out there, 20 or 30, then all of a sudden we have to bring the housing manager back in at a cost that, you know, we're saying that our budget is not doing very well right now, and our human resource costs are going up. And, you know, that's an expensive piece to bring back in to manage this program. Nobody looks at what happens when values go down. You know, I've been in the real estate a long time, values go up, sometimes they go down. If they go down and somebody doesn't have any skin in the game, they're much more likely to walk away from it. In private lending, there's PMI on anything over 80%. You know, different programs call it different things, but investors have found out that if you have somebody that has a, you know, skin in the game and something goes wrong, they're much more likely to do it, keep the house, keep working with it. If somebody comes along and puts 80% down, we give them 20%, and the market goes south, and they decide, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here, we're not going to see any of that money back. Now you could say, well, it's not our money, it's coming from the state, but I don't look like it like that, because the state's money is our money. So, you know, to go in there and say, we're going to take all the risk on, which no private bank, no public bank would ever do anymore. I mean, it's just been proven that people don't have anything going for them. And, you know, the requirement here is you put $1,000 of your own money in it. That's, to me, is really, it's not very smart. And I also wonder, again, you know, we're getting in the real estate business, and is that our best? When everything's going rosy, it's kind of a good thing. When things turn south to go the other way, you know, you can have a mess on your hands. So for those reasons, I don't think I can, I don't know. It really helps me to know that we don't have 2C funds in here. I don't know why we're fronting the money from 2C for this and we're not fronting it from somewhere else, but I'd love to know the answer on that one. But, you know, other than that, those are my thoughts on it. And I just don't like these types of programs. I've got nothing against, you know, having some sort of assistance program out there, but like Steve said, maybe we could use it in a better way. And that may not be a choice in this factor, but.
Okay, thank you very much. Very thorough. Any other comments? Councilor Schachter.
Combo question and comment, because Councilor Townsley has dug into this way more than I have. So between you and Watkins, I have a question. Did I understand correctly that a recipient only has to have $1,000 of their own if they qualify, if the housing qualifies? Second, we are doing down payment assistance. So is there not bank underwriting behind the financing of this? Those are two questions right there. I wonder if you guys have an answer there.
Yes, there is that minimum personal investment requirement that you were quoting. I think 1,000 might be the amount.
That's correct.
And yes, I mean, the amount that we can give is capped at 100,000. It's the lesser of 100,000 or 20%. And so obviously 100,000 doesn't buy a house. So there is always other bank underwriting happening and a mortgage in first position.
And if somebody is able to keep up to $25,000 and we're concerned about the ability to keep up with upkeep, utilities, et cetera, there is a potential reserve if they have the capital. Is that?
Yeah. Again, it gets down to what are we doing for people? And to go back to your question about underwriting, there is bank underwriting for that first 80%. There's really no underwriting. They're looking at it and going, okay, you've got 20% in this. As far as they care, they're still limited to risk to 80%. We're the ones going, we don't care about risk. Let's just hand you some money and hope for the best.
And
And
if,
that
it-
hasn't worked out well in the past.
and if there is best, and there's turnover later, we have some recapture of that down payment upon the future sale of a home,
Yes.
if
Yes,
it's
the-
above water.
The way it's set up is that it's an equity sharing model. So
Okay.
we take a portion of the equity in proportion to the amount that we gave for the purchase
So
price.
my comment then, because I've had respectful conversations about this and I understand the dilemma, but also after looking at this, I went back and looked at our community survey and other things, and we are torn in so many directions. So community survey says, oh, I mean, these are amazing. Oh, we're growing too fast. I won't even address traffic because that's a different issue. But we need more affordable housing, but we don't want more apartments and growth. And so I'm sitting here in the dilemma of, okay, what are our solutions that kind of meet those criteria? Counselor Zelinski mentioned development neutral falls right into that category. Yes, this is development neutral. Yes, it does provide housing and diverse housing that we want. I understand Counselor Townsley's concerns and the detail as a former lender, but I'm torn at the higher level. This program, and I don't consider it free money, okay? It's money we paid and maybe we can recoup some of it back as opposed to somebody else. I've heard that. I go, this may be one of the few solutions we have that meet more housing, development neutral, not necessarily growth. Maybe it's one of the better options we have, which our housing commission seems to believe. So I'm going to probably lean in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
So thank you both for your comments and your questions, because that helped me get a deeper understanding. I also just wanted to highlight that this is promoting ownership. And I know that, one of your concerns is that ownership without enough skin in the game, but there's a lot of pride involved in ownership. And I think, at the end of the day, this is still an incredibly desirable community, which is based, evidenced all the time around us by how many people are trying to move here. And so I think once somebody's in here in a position where they can plant a garden and paint their kid's bedroom the color they want, I think that there is a deeper commitment to staying. And I think that, by promoting development neutral, integration into different neighborhoods and ownership, I think that that gives this program a higher potential to be successful than a lot of the other things that we're doing, rental assistance and things like that. If we really want to promote people being able to set roots down in this community, young families being able to raise kids here, we're seeing our population in this community growing older, not because we're aging in place, but young people can't move here. And so this is just this way that we can, like I said, kind of create the kind of community for the future that I think speaks well for the future of Glenwood Springs.
Thank you. Counselor Townsley, one more time.
Just, and I'll stop here, but it's under the guise of affordable housing. And I know this is horrible. Nobody will like this, but we're not going to win an affordable housing battle. This is not going to do it for us. If we just want to give out money to people to go buy a house and everybody's cool with that. And, we pick a few winners to go out and, at the end of the day, some people are going to have homes. We should just call it that and not say that we're trying to solve an affordability problem, because I don't buy that part. I don't mean to be mean. I don't mean to be, this is a giveaway to people. And I just don't think that does it accomplish some good things? Yes, I have no doubt about that. I'll stop.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I'm not trying to undercut your argument. I'm just saying, and I'm not looking to solve the problem, but we are addressing it and we are picking away at it. And sometimes that's the best you can do. We have very few tools to address this in a tangible way. As much as I promoted the workforce housing fund, the 2C, I really was doubtful about what a difference it would make, because I'm looking at the amount of money it was going to generate. And I'm like, man, that'll buy a house. But I'm stunned with what we've been able to accomplish based on the advice from that board. So I think little steps in the right direction may be all we can do, but I do feel like this is a tangible move in that direction for, even if we only help, a handful of families.
Thank you. If I see no more comments, I will call for the question.
And the question is to approve this grant application.
The motion stands and the second does to move this resolution, to approve this resolution as it's written.
No, Counselor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. No, Counselor Schmall. Yes, Counselor Smith. Yes, Counselor Schachter. It passes 5-2.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Moving on to item 8, citywide project update. City engineer, Ryan Gordon. And Matt.
Let's see here. Okay. There we go. Good evening, Council. Ryan Gordon, City Engineer. So about 2 months ago, we came in and gave you kind of a preview of what we're doing this year. Things have advanced somewhat, and so I wanted to give you guys an update. So, okay, there's a little lag. Anyway, you've seen my wonderful map. It's been amended to some regards. I will go into kind of the details. My goal tonight is really to kind of touch on some of the newer things, but obviously anything the city is doing is open for comment or questions. So some of the major projects, what I'm calling major projects, we've talked about these already, but quick updates. Highway 6 and 24, the shared use path project. We have been going through a bunch of pre-construction meetings. We are officially going to be starting March 16th. Google Construction is the contractor, and they will be starting March 16th, going probably through middle July, end of July. That slipped a little bit just because trying to get going here with dealing with CDOT and a grant. Coach Miller Drive, again, was awarded a couple weeks ago. Construction is going to start on June 3rd. We applied for a DOLA grant for that project. So once we hear back on that, we can finalize the contracts, but we've been talking to the contractor about that given the short time frame for that project from start to finish. 19th Street, we are planning on some significant improvements on that road. We are finalizing the design. That design has expanded from just a simple road replacement to upsizing an undersized sewer line, upsizing some storm facilities, and then replacing curb, gutter, and sidewalk on the road. We've been in consultation with Valley View Hospital to make sure that we understand, ambulance and EMS routes. We also applied for an FMLD grant on this project that was due earlier this week on Monday. We should hear back in the next month or two with regards to that. That project will be bid out in the next week or two so we can start going on that project. Last of what I'm calling major projects, for better or for worse, Soccer Field Road out by the middle school. We have all of, let's say, the base work done, surveys and other information compiled, and are working on the design. That should be done in the next week or two, bidding out sometime perhaps in March. Similar to Coach Miller, we're going to do this project when school is not in session. So that's June 3rd-ish through August. Relatively simple project, a little bit of drainage and storm work outside of the roadway platform, but generally speaking, fairly simple. Again, the point of this one, more than anything else, is to add a missing piece of sidewalk on the east side from the middle school down to 6 and 24, where the bus stops are and some other facilities. So that's kind of our major construction projects. The minor ones we sort of touched on, these are generally speaking, the Minturn Avenue and also the 9th Street. Those are generally just repaving, mill and overlay, or full depth asphalt replacement. One project you guys, I don't think I've presented before. So 7th Street sidewalk construction. So I got a few nice photos here that took the other day. So again, this is 7th Street right behind us from downtown as you're going west towards Two Rivers Park. There is no sidewalk. And this is on the side where the railroad tracks are for a variety of reasons. Last year, we took out the crossing, the railroad crossing. This year, we want to kind of finish this missing piece, right? So looking from basically, this is the intersection of Colorado and 7th towards the west. You can see no sidewalk. Similar picture, look in the other direction. Again, no sidewalk. So we are going to add sidewalk, make this connection. Also probably going to do perhaps a little bit of rehab on some curb and gutter. We're working with parks to make sure that we protect the trees, maybe expand some of the tree wells, and maybe get rid of some of the pavers that are failing and some of the wonkiness on that. On a side note, not tied to this, but our streets division is looking to put in a metal fence along the railroad right of way. Right now, as you can see, anybody can kind of walk through over the railroad tracks. Talking to the railroad, they like the idea of a fence that again, anybody can jump over a fence, but at least one more barrier. In looking on this one too, towards the end of this picture, you can see we do have people that kind of park on the side of the road over the curb and gutter. So it'll kind of help to control where people are going, parking in for safety reasons. So those are kind of I'm gonna say, like I said, those minor ones that aren't substantial, that don't take a ton of time. Kind of going into some of the design projects that we have in the hopper. So the first 3 bullet items, we've talked quite a bit about. These are sort of the neighborhood level projects: Glenwood Park, 8th Midland, Cowden, and also North Glenwood. I just want to highlight Glenwood Park is kind of floated to the top of our projects here from the neighborhood perspective. We're looking to get an RFP out to consultants probably in the next month or so to kind of get that going. Wolfson Road and the West Midland Avenue roundabout, again, that's been on for a while. That project is done. Design wise, we're trying to figure out when is that kind of plug into construction, whether it's next year or the year after, then plus also look for funding as we know better on what that costs and the impacts. Okay, the next ones, I actually have some fancy pictures for you guys. So I'm going to skip down to the next ones. The list is here for you guys to look at. But the first one is Bobolink Road. This is over by Oriole. I see maybe some confusion of where this is. So this is as you're coming off of Grand Avenue on South Grand. There's a small little subdivision there. Oriole, Cesar,
Oriole, Meadowlark.
some birdland and some non-birds. So this is a small cul-de-sac. It's hard to see, or maybe it's easy to see. Terrible road condition. The curb and gutter is all wonky. It needs to have some repairs. This really is an output of we knew this, but our Pazer analysis, right, that we did about a year ago, identified this as a terrible road. And it is a terrible road and needs to be done. So we are under process right now of designing it. Similar to some of our other things, we may or may not do it this year, depending on how the budgets come in. But this is one that we're targeting at least get set up for us to do in the near future. Another one that we've been talking with Parks and Rec is the 12th Street ditch. This is 2 photos of 12th Street ditch. One looking at the actual culvert that goes under Grand Avenue. It's been established, I guess, as under a crossing. It's not entirely safe or well lit. It is used. And so one of the things we talked about parks is, hey, how do we improve this, right? One of our ideas is we need better crossings of Grand Avenue where you don't have to interact with a vehicle, even at a stoplight, right? We're trying to mimic what's at 27th Street. So, but before Terry Parch and her staff left, they, along with the CSAP, got an HSIP, to Highway Safety Improvement Program, is what HSIP stands for. Got $1 million grant for some work tied to the CSAP. That HSIP grant, that $1 million, was initially earmarked for a potential underpass at 10th Street, or a bridge overpass somewhere between 14th and 15th. Both those projects, or one of them, would cost substantially more than $1 million. We are in consultation and talking to CDOT, who administers this, about, hey, look, we don't think 10th Street or 14th, 15th Street makes sense for one of these massive projects. And so we took a look at this and we reapplied for some additional funds for potentially doing an underpass here at 12th Street. So this is a project that is, and I say it's design, we're kind of holding until we see if we get monies for the HSIP program. If not, we've been talking to Parks about how we just make this a little bit better. Generally speaking, it's dark for lighting reasons, but it's also height-wise, it's pretty narrow. So it still functions as is, but if we can make improvements, we really want to. So more to come in the future if we get some monies. If not, we are talking about how do we make it better for the reason of getting across Grand Avenue. Part of this project would be not only an underpass, but then trying to create better connections in either end. This would be one that would be tied to the overall, let's say, biking network. So this one would not be an ADA compliant. Again, we don't really have the grades and whatever else to meet it, but then also the purpose of this trail is more of a trail and not a transit route, if that makes any sense. Moving on, another one over at Mitchell Creek in West Glenwood. So a few years ago, through a FEMA grant, we looked at the flows coming off of Storm King Mountain. I won't go into the details of that, but anyway, the recommendation from that study was the creek crossings at Mitchell Creek, so both on Center Drive and then in Donegan, are, what did I do? Who knows what I did? Same slide, same conversation. Apologize for that interruption. The result was that these two culverts or crossings were grossly undersized based on the flow. Also in support of downstream along Center is there is a mobile home park that the city contributed for them to purchase the land. That area has flood insurance requirements because it is in a floodway. And so what we have looked at doing is a design that would remove significantly amount of those properties, plus some other areas from the floodway, and would then eliminate the need for flood insurance. So we have engaged a consultant to kind of do some ground truthing and how much this costs. We are not quite sure if this is going to ultimately be a design project in the near term. And the reason why is the design is relatively simple and basic. But in order to get this project certified and then ultimately to remove those flood insurance requirements requires a clomer-lomer with FEMA. Essentially what that does is remapping the creek and the flood conditions. That's a really expensive process. And so we are having a conversation with our consultant to kind of narrow the scope, and we're trying to figure out what it is. But again, I just wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the things that we're contemplating. At a minimum, we're going to get some additional survey, so we actually have the base to do the design. I think what's likely going to happen is we're going to probably do the full design, but not go through the FEMA certification. The reason why is there is already a county-wide or even a statewide effort by FEMA that has actually been going on now for 5, 6, 7 years to remap a lot of the drainages throughout our region. When they do that, a lot of those flood insurance maps, the firm maps, will be redone, so we can kind of piggyback on what they're doing to get some of that legwork done. So to be determined, but again, a pretty good project that we're looking at. The other one that is actually current in design, I think is more likely, is a pedestrian connection in on South Grand. So this photo is taken looking along the cemetery. What we're contemplating here is from the Cardiff Bridge south to the rafted parking lot at the south end of the cemetery. People park there to get on the Rio Grande Trail, is to create another continuous piece of the biking network that's lacking. So again, one of the ideas is at the Cardiff Bridge where it intersects South Grand. Right now we're contemplating a speed table there to help people get across, and then after you cross the road on the cemetery side, build nominally a 10-foot wide concrete path to get people then from the South Glenwood neighborhood that would want to go to the Rio Grande Trail, a safer way to get and access the Rio Grande Trail. Currently, you're riding along the side of this road. lots of traffic at peak times, not the safest. So this would be a way of creating a better trail, better safety experience and whatnot. This is again looking towards the Cardiff Bridge, where again we would probably put a speed table here for a variety of reasons. Number one, get people across the road, but also some speed control on South Grand. So those are kind of the major projects. Matt's going to talk about a few of the things that water and wastewater are doing as well across the city.
Two things I want to point out in Ryan's presentation. One is that the box culvert conversation will also be us working with the county, because they own Donegan one, we own the center one. So we'll help them out. We'll probably go in for some grant funding. We'll figure out how to do that so it's as inexpensive as humanly possible for all of us, but accomplish the goal. And it would take quite a few homes out of that floodplain as long as the mapping ever gets done. The other thing was we are doing 19th Street, Bobolink, and the trail in-house. So we haven't RFP'd those because Mindy and Ashley are kicking butt and they're getting all those things done so that we can look at them, price them, and see where they fit into the budgets. So we're not using consultants at a higher rate to accomplish those things. So just so you understand that those are being done in-house. I'll go over my list really, really quick, but you'll kind of get a grasp of that list, and this is just what we're doing this year. Pump station number 1, which actually pumps water from the lower levels up to the Oasis tank, and the Oasis tank pumps up to the Highlands tank, which is the smaller tank we were talking about earlier, is out to bid right now. I believe they'll do that next week or the week after, pretty close. Next week. Pump station number 3, which is a new one by the Cardiff tanks for Silver Sage. They're in design of that at this moment. We're just trying to tweak it to make sure we get what we want. But that is in process at this moment. Also, we'll be involved in that. The Cowden lift station that's in the budget that we talked about previously that needs to be rebuilt. It does need to be rebuilt. We're trying to figure out some ownership things and some property things. So we've kind of put that to the side at the moment. We're going to rebuild the Veltis Park lift station. That one's actually in about the same condition. And we own all the property adjacent to it. So it's a much easier project. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, but we are looking at rebuilding the water line and sewer line on West First Street in front of the 2 hotels right next to the pit stop. Basically taking sewer and water out to the fence along I-70, down the fence along I-70, basically to the behind Village Inn. That project was started with the Grand Avenue Bridge project. It's all thin wall steel 12-inch pipe, needs to be upsized, and we have leak issues on it. And I'm not even going to try to explain the sanitary sewer over there. We'll just say it's better if it goes to this way and this way instead of that way. It's crazy. Again, we can look at a map if you ever want to, but it's pretty insane. So SGM is actually in process of finishing that design. It was budgeted this year. We started it last year and moved it to this year, and we have construction money for it also. Grizzly Creek pipe. We know that all the couplers on the pipe are 35 years old at this point. One of them failed last year. That's the pipe that takes from the Grizzly Creek Dam and pipes it above ground to the tunnel, and the tunnel takes it over to No Name. So we fixed the one coupler that we had that was damaged last year. We're going to replace all of them this year and all of the planking, because as you walk that pipe, sometimes you're 30 or 40 feet in the air with a safety rail associated with it, but the planking is starting to get old. So that project will go out for RFP here soon too. We've already talked about the Melray pressure vault. You guys approved that expenditure, I think, last year. That'll help us control how much water goes to the West Glenwood tank. Right now it's a valve on and a valve off kind of thing. Cardinal substation. I want you guys to be aware of that because you may see it happening. We're looking at expanding the Cardinal substation, which is, sorry, not the Cardinal, the Mitchell Creek substation, which is along Devereaux. It needs to be a little bit bigger. We're going to expand the fence line. Excel's going to come in and rebuild everything in that substation on their end. And then in the next year or two, we're going to upsize the transformer. So you'll see how projects going on over there. What's the last thing? Oh, bulk meter water replacement. You guys approved this budget, and that is going happening. It's probably going to start in May. So if you hear complaints about people getting lots and lots of phone calls, we're trying to get them to respond so that we can replace all those old water meters that are on the bottom of the list that are the aging out ones. We're going to do about 500 meters this year in full replacement, and they're all going to be AMI meters. So we'll be able to hook people up to WaterScope software, and they'll be able to see how much water they use all day long, every single day, and set up alerts. So if there's a water leak and they're gone, it will tell them that there's something odd going on. You might want to go look at it. Or your toilet's running hey, you use more water last week than you normally do. So we're trying to get into the world of AMI. There's a lot of communities have gone to these Metron meters, very helpful. Maybe the school, we switched the school district over to them and they love them. So that's kind of it. I'll skip the other things because we've been talking too long.
Okay, excellent. Thank you guys for the update.
And one more thing that I forgot, remarkably enough, after that list, one last thing. So the parking garage over here on
Oh, yeah.
10th and Cooper is, we have an RFP that's due on Monday to do some repairs. So again, those are some things that we need for infiltration and then some crack sealing and whatnot. So that's another thing on the list.
Okay, excellent. Moving right along. Great. Mayor Pro Tem Solinsky. Questions to council?
So quick question.
Okay.
I walk along, what is it, South Grand. There's a lot of parking that happens along Rosebud, and it used to just be like a car or two. And now I'm like, it is sometimes packed to the point where it feels like it's a little bit encroaching. Is that in our purview to manage?
Yeah, it is. And so, you know, when we do this trail, it will go where all those cars are parked.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
And generally speaking, all those cars are the employees of some of those shops across the street. So yeah, that is ours to respond to. Yeah.
So is part of the construction of the trail going to be some like rocks or barriers or something so they can't just park on the trail instead of the gravel?
Where they are parking right now will be curb gutter and
Okay.
a trail.
Gotcha.
And I guess one other thing on that project, you know, that the lot at the end is a RAFTA owned project. And we are in consultation with RAFTA. They at one point last year wanted to redo that, put a drinking fountain and maybe a bathroom, redo that. So we're possibly looking to tag team with those guys and maybe go after some grants together, or if they have the budget, they can do their portion, our portion, and kind of get it done together.
Awesome. That's great news.
Thank you. Councillor Schmall, please.
Coach Miller Drive is starting after school is out. Can we remember to make provisions to get water down to the park in that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we are going to provide a water tap to be able to run water down there.
Thanks. And the 6 and 24 work is starting a week after it's been advertised to start. Is that what I heard?
It's starting March 16th.
And the sign says March 9th.
You are correct. You got to move the week and we're changing the sign.
Yeah, so
Or put some cones out there or make it look like something started on March 9th.
one of the two.
Good machine.
Okay. Is there any reason that we can't get these presentations in our packets so that we can be a little bit more informed when you present to us?
We can work on that. We're usually, I
Right up
say
to the
we, I
deadline.
am usually at the last minute scrambling, but
Understand the deadline thing, but it's helpful.
fair enough. Fair enough.
We've talked for a long time about it, the air quality monitor downtown. I don't know that it's in yet. Is it in?
I'd have to check for sure with CMC, but that's the building that it's going on. And they were working on it. I don't know if it's in yet or not, but I can check.
That's something that seems like it's taken exorbitantly long. And sort of sends the signal that we're not paying attention when it takes that long. The 12th Street underpass, that it looks like a culvert pipe. Is that a squash pipe or is it an actual arch culvert?
Yeah, it's a squash pipe.
So you can't dig out under it.
No. And our ideas on that would be basically to peel back the road, put in an underpass. So it'd be a 9-foot high concrete underpass, maybe looking at precast to save cost and time. But yeah, so it's very difficult to do anything as is.
Yeah.
There's not very much digging, luckily, because there's already a hole there.
Yeah, right. The improvements, some of the improvements on Mitchell Creek are outside city limits though, right?
Yes, sir.
Again, I encourage somehow, city manager that you coordinate with council on conversations about annexation of those areas that are in the urban growth boundary, but outside of city limits. Because if we continue providing improvements outside city limits, then there is never any incentive for anyone to want to get annexed. And I think that's a bad thing for the city.
So I don't think the intention is to provide an improvement for the county with that particular culvert. We will work with Scott Marsh and the county staff and say, you've got a problem. Here's a solution to the problem. Let's go team up for a grant. You guys control your portion, we'll control our portion. But if we just do our portion, it will actually help quite a bit for downstream. But it doesn't make any sense to not design both of them, or at least have a good thought process.
Understand the thought process behind efficiency and applaud it. But in the meantime, I fear that we're damaging the city's future advantage in revenue to fund that sort of thing. Just my comment. The Cardiff Bridge where the trail is starting is, do you know, is that Cardiff Bridge got any kind of a rating on it?
Yeah, SGM did a rating on it 4 years ago before we put a snooper truck on it to insulate the water line underneath of it. So it is rated to the, I think it's an H10 or something to that effect. It's not quite at H20 loading, but it's more than an H5. So we do have a rating on it. You can drive a truck and a snooper, which is basically, it was a 350 with a large, you know, the underpass hangover. So we did have it rated. It's not official, but it is we did do a structural analysis and they did give us a rating on it.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith.
This is impressive, just inherently. You're juggling a remarkable bunch of projects and getting them done. It's the extra bit of excitement I have about it is that if I'm following these right, much of this is being possible because of the Streets and Infrastructure Fund, that you're able to get more done just as promised. So that's gratifying as a companion piece that the voters did the right thing. Regarding the 6 and 24 shared use path, nine years ago, City Council started talking about this. 10 years ago, citizens started talking about this. It has been progressing, and it is wonderful news that it is coming to be real. So thank you for bringing that one through.
Can I say one thing on that? Thanks CDOT also, $750,000 grant is quite helpful. Yes, they're slowing us down a week, but at the end of the day, that's a lot of money. Thank you, CDOT.
Great. The Soccer Field Road project comes how far south?
So it's going to start at Highway 6 and 24 and then head towards Donegan. We are still contemplating making any improvements within Highway 6 and 24. I think that's going to be exceedingly challenging, at least with this project, given that we want to get this done this year. That is obviously a CDOT facility, and so there is quite a bit of coordination if we were going to do anything within that roadway.
A key part of this project, I think, is a sidewalk on the east side.
Correct.
Of Soccer. Does it also include installation of a good new refreshed painted crosswalk at 6 and 24 across Soccer Field?
Yes.
To connect that sidewalk to the roundabout and such.
Absolutely, yeah.
7th Street sidewalk, another series of gaps that was identified by the county health department ages ago. As I understood it then, there were difficulties over railroad right-of-way getting in the way. That's been figured out apparently.
Yes, we've resolved that.
And to Councilor Schmall's note about this excellent set of slides, can you send it to us after the fact?
I will, absolutely. And I will work diligently to get it to you well before next time.
Before or after, it's a helpful reference document. Thank you. I've forgotten which of the Birdland streets Bobolink is. Is it one of the north-south streets or is it one that connects to Old South Grand?
It's north-south. It's on
This
this
first cul-de-sac on your right.
right here.
Great.
As you go in to Oriole.
where I was about to fish is that we've got a shared use path along Old South Grand that crosses the two entry points into Birdland, but there are no crosswalks making that connection. So I'll pick that up at a later notion. 12th Street ditch project with very imaginative ways to make some lemonade out of that. Is the concept, even though you're just starting design, is the concept to pave the approach trails as well?
It would be to, we'll see where it goes, but right now the idea is the approach trails from, let's say, the surface down into the ditch. Those would be hardscaped, but the rest, and then underneath Grand Avenue through the current culvert would be, again, if it's box culvert, would be concrete, but then the whole stretch is not going to be paved. So they're just sections.
Okay.
So it's not improving it to the extent that we are hardscaping the whole trail.
It is still a ditch and it was designed for debris flow out of that area. So I'm trying to leave it multifunctional.
Great, thank you. Pump stations was a replacement or new pump stations?
So pump station number 3 is a new pump station for the Silver Sage project, the 20 townhomes that are going in there. We're having them upgrade it a little bit for some future needs that we have and for things we see going on. So we're working hand in hand with them, and they've been very good to work with. And then pump station number 1 is a replacement. Those are the only 3 pump stations. We have 2 right now. We'll have a 3rd one. They'll all be designed exactly the same with the same pumps, the same layouts, basically as much as humanly possible so that we're consistent.
Great. Thank you for that. One final, I assume as always, cone zone or whatever variation of the city's publicity department will tell people about timing, disruptions, detours, and things like that.
Yeah, the next iteration of the cone zone will include information on 6 and 24. And then as the other ones come online for construction, they will be included in then future cone zones.
In that regard, and not on this list, Black Hills Energy is currently replacing a gas pipeline currently along Prem Road. The workers out there tell me that ultimately that'll continue along Airport Road toward 27 or the 4 Mile Roundabout. Even though that's their project, will we also have cone zone information for the Cardiff Mesa, Cardiff Glen neighborhoods when air disruptions and detours come?
That's a good comment, and yeah, we will include that in the cone zone. That's obviously impactful to that neighborhood and should have been in there, but we certainly will make sure it's included.
Good. Thank you very much for all of this wonderful success on the way.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski, please.
So I get pretty regular inquiries to the pedestrian crossing light at the Benedict. And so I keep telling them that it's coming, and you alluded that it might be complicated. Can you expound on that, please?
So it is complicated. If you actually go over there and you look at where a light could go, there's a sidewalk, there is 18 inches of grass and curb. And then you've got a crossing, and then the other side, you've got the Benedict over there, and they've got a little bit wider buffer zone over there. The RRFB won't actually fit between the sidewalk and the curb. Okay. And if we did, it would hang into the lane about 10 inches. So the chance of it surviving more than a day or 2 would be pretty minimal.
Got it.
We're trying to come up with a different option. The problem is we could push the sidewalk out when construction season comes around, but there's a wall associated with Cottonwood Landing right there.
Yep.
So TS&L has come up with a solution where we could do a smaller sign that's still MUTC compliant. It's high enough that bikers won't clip their heads on it. The rapid flashing beacon may go vertical. Okay. We would put another one in the middle because there's an island out there. Yep. Then another one on the Benedict side. I don't expect the one on the north by Cottonwood Landing to survive because you'll see tire tracks through that little buffer zone. We could put it behind the sidewalk. It's a little less effective because it's 7 feet off the edge of the road, but at least it would still be there. But I'm trying to figure out, it's like between $25,000 and $30,000 to accomplish just that one crossing. So it is possible, but where it wants to live, it doesn't really want to live because it won't live because they get run over all the time. I mean, the ones like we talked about at 116 got run over the second day.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So we're trying to figure out how to put it in so it's effective to get across, but also so that it's not a continuous maintenance problem associated with it. So TBD, I just need to figure out if we're going to spend $30,000 on one single crossing to accomplish it. When I'm not aware of any incidences at that location, but you know, it is what it is.
So there hasn't been an incident yet, but okay, two things. One, that's a kind of a vulnerable population.
Sure.
And I have had now 2 incidences where I've come down and had to really stop short because the person in front of me stopped really short because there was somebody moving very slowly through there. So I don't know, is there potentially an interim signage solution, maybe something in the middle, like you said, there's that island, maybe something there that's visible that we could just start so that, you know, like a watch for pedestrians or just something.
There are already pedestrian crossing signs associated with that crossing. I don't have one in the middle because the middle ones don't last.
I know. And I don't know why is just, maybe we could paint something. I'm trying to think of some way that we can highlight it because I fear there will be an incident and I really hate to get to that point. And I've seen enough kind of uncomfortable moments that I don't think that it's a possibility. I think there's a higher degree of likelihood. So for what it's worth.
TSNL can do it. We can put it behind the sidewalk and see how well it functions.
Right.
There'll be solar. So it'll be super interesting because we probably have to bring power to them because the building will shade 2, if not 3 of them most of the time kind of thing. So we have to bring power to them at the same time. So we'll just figure something out.
Okay, well,
Obviously it's going to be like tomorrow.
No, it's good information to have, and I appreciate the explanation. Because I didn't have a good answer until now, and so I appreciate,
30-second tidbit that was funny to me this morning. I was driving down US 6 and 24 at West First Street, which has a rapid flashing beacon. The human being in the crosswalk almost got run over, even though the beacon was still going on. And he was wearing bright clothes.
Yeah.
So people lack common sense sometimes when they're driving, and we need to be better about that. And then people would not have to have rapid flashing.
No, we do. And again, anecdotally, I drive past Mesa's campus down in Grand Junction all the time, and they have the most eye-blinding rapid flashing beacons. And I've seen it. It's shocking. So, maybe we need to do a little bit better as a community kind of
I'm just waiting for a proposal from TSNL. If it comes in at the dollar amount that they stated, we'll talk to Steve and make sure it's okay if we spend that on this one particular one. But we bought a whole bunch of them for twice this price? Yeah. So we bought 6 of them for the price of 1. So we're just trying to figure out how to accomplish.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schmall.
A further idea, incentive to get everything that we get in our package goes online, right? So the packet that we get is the one that's advertised and is online available to everybody. So again, being helpful for us to get that information early, also it gives us a good excuse to tell our constituents to pay attention, look online. There's no secrecy here. We're trying to be clear to everybody about what's going on.
I'll do better to help him and make sure we get it done.
I mean, it's a double positive.
It is.
Thank you, Councilor Smith.
Now that she has astutely raised it, I am delighted to chime in with Councilor Linsky on pedestrian assistance at the West 27th Street roundabout. And just want to add an additional motivation in addition to vulnerable population living there or otherwise. The city and RAFTA and CDOT put major money into building the marvelous double underpass at 27th and 27th and Glen to get to the bus station. There's a very available population in Cottonwood, in whatever the ones called up on the hill. Terraces to use the bus service and used to before that project happened. I think that's another motivation for making safe travel through that roundabout by pedestrians to get them onto buses. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll see none. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the update. Very informative as always. Moving on to item 9, master service agreement for Southbridge Construction Management. Ryan?
Still me.
Still you.
Ryan Gordon, city engineer. Yes, so a couple of weeks ago, we had the RFQ for Southbridge CM and testing services, which did not have any costs associated with it. We've worked with Roxall, who was the consultant, who was teamed up with both Yay and Associates for testing, and then SGM here locally. And we have developed a general list of task items associated with the pre-construction services. That was included in your packet. I don't think I need to necessarily read all the items. We have crafted it such that we feel it's very conservative in numbers, but we wanted to make sure that we would cast a large net for anything that we may or may not need. There's actually already a few things that we've been working that we know Roxall won't need that they listed in here. So we are already, I think, doing an efficient job on managing it. But the way that I plan on executing this contract, if approved today with Roxall, is for all activities that they want to do is really get defined scope from them even further than this, and then really understand if we need to do the work or not, and really work with them on a really close basis to make sure we're doing everything as efficiently as possible. So with that very short preamble, comments, questions from you guys on the pre-construction services?
Very short presentation, hopefully very short questions. That would be awesome. Okay, back to council. Questions for Ryan? Councilor Smith.
This contract with numbers filled in essentially compared to the previous discussion is a capped amount, or would this proposal, would this vote allow for additional charges to go on this rate schedule?
I would say this is a cap of these services. This takes us through or to the bidding services. If there is anything above and beyond this, we would come back to you guys for additional authorization.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? We'll see none. I assume you need a formal action in this. Okay, I'll bring it back to council and entertaining a motion. Councilor Weimer.
Move to approve the master service agreement for Southbridge Construction Management as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Councilor Townsend.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Councilor Smith.
My objections to this are the same ones that I posed 2 weeks ago when we talked about the contract itself that didn't have numbers in it. This is spending a significant amount of city money on a larger project that has not been fully funded, that we don't know is going to happen. So that committing that kind of money just still feels as premature as it did last time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Small.
Ryan, thanks for all the information that you guys have put out there for us to be able to evaluate. I spent quite a bit of time on it, and I'm convinced that there is a significant amount of work yet to be done to get this project ready to bid. What I believe was represented as 100% design is not ready to bid. And a significant amount of the money that Roxall is going to need to spend effort on, unless you have some other way of getting this project ready to bid, someone's going to have to spend a lot of time doing that. If you honestly thought that the plans that we have are ready to bid, the plans and specs are ready to bid, then I think maybe we ought to have a conversation on the side about it. because it's not. And that's my comment. I know, I recognize how much you need rock salt, but whether or not we have them doing the right things is a serious question to me.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Weimer.
Ryan, just to remind us, what's gone into the process to get to a point where you believe that this is 100% designed? How many people have weighed in? How many people agree with you that this is 100% designed?
So obviously we've engaged a design firm, Jacobs Engineering, who ultimately will stamp these drawings with an engineered stamp. These have been reviewed multiple times by the various entities at CDOT. And so they are certainly up to snuff, at least with the CDOT corridor. The bridge department at CDOT has also spent quite a bit of time in reviewing the bridge design and the bridge drawings. So there has been quite a bit of QA/QC from CDOT, ultimately, who will take responsibility of the work on Highway 82. And then internally here at the city, Matt and I in the engineering department has reviewed all of the specifications and the drawings on the city side, which are a lot more simpler than the CDOT corridor. Councilor Schmar, there are a few things that I know that you noticed that we have caught already. I will say that those were 100% drawings. They're actually more like 96%. We do have another round of comments that Jacobs is incorporating. So there will be some cleanup that is going on to make them fully whole. But again, there has been quite a few rounds of review by various different entities. So again, I think they're in a good state to be able to bid. But we do have a little bit of work. And then obviously with Roxall, who has been doing this CM for CDOT for many years. In fact, for example, they're on Vail Pass. So they understand CDOT processes and drawings, and we're hoping they'll bring that expertise to this project as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Townsend.
So I have no background in bridges or engineering, but just from a kind of common sense standpoint, it seems like we keep getting to, I keep voting for things without having made a decision on the bridge yet, but it's like, I want to get to the point where we know what it's going to cost us. And it seems like we keep getting closer there, but then it seems like there's always something that comes up. I mean, when are we really going to know? Well, let me phrase it two different ways. If you get this passed and you get this done, and maybe that's that other 4% that you need, or maybe there's more there, I don't know, because 100 down to 96, but with this or without this, so two different answers. When do we get to a place where we can send it out, and how much time is it going to take before we actually know something? Because September keeps getting closer and closer, and as I understand, that's kind of when something has to happen.
So we have a cost estimate that Jacobs produced for us based on these drawings, and we've reviewed that internally. So we have a fairly good confidence level of where we are cost wise. So one of the tasks in here for the Roxall team is, again, having a set of eyes that really hasn't looked at this project, right? We are kind of in a little bit of tunnel vision between us and Jacobs. So having Roxall be able to provide that outside review in a lot of those costs, those higher level costs, to really help us determine, hey, are we close, or is this $100 million project? We think it's somewhere in the, the $70-75 million range, right? So that's really going to be helpful to kind of truth that out. But again, I think we understand fairly well where the costs are. So I think at this point right now, we feel pretty good about where they are. Now, again, there could be some things that we don't understand, which Roxall will help us. And back to that September date. So just a little bit of clarification. The September date is the obligation date for the big federal grant. And we always internally thought that meant issuing it for construction, getting a contractor on board, and essentially having them spend money and us pay them, being obligated to us. The actual definition, working with FHW and CDOT, is the obligation will be met once the drawings are final, the environmental documents are final, and the right of way is secured. At that point, we will have met that obligation, and therefore the grant will be essentially downloaded. So we don't have to be out to construction by September. That is absolutely my goal. My goal still is to be bidding this probably June, July of this year. And we would still meet the previous definition of obligation, but that schedule pressure is a little bit less than we initially thought.
It's kind of a follow-up question, and this may go to Steve too, but I know in a piece that we're going to see here in a little bit, there's a $2 million line item for the right-of-way. Is that number just something kind of a placeholder, or do we have any idea, okay, we've got some engineering things and whatnot. Does that 75 million number that you're throwing out there, does that include the costs that we may or may not have with litigation, the costs that we may or may not have with that right-of-way?
So I can't speak to the cost of any litigation, but the right-of-way numbers, we have now made offers to every property owner, whether it's for right-of-way, which are just two entities, Holy Cross and then the Jackson Family Ranch and AVLT. We have one easement, which is for the homeowners association over there in Cardiff Glen. And then we have 10 or 12 or 14 temporary construction easements. So we've made offers to every single one of those entities. So we know, at least from the offer perspective, how much the right-of-way is going to cost.
And is that $2 million number?
That is, yeah.
Okay. For all of them combined?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. So I was trying to think and say, this is nice. I don't sell the $80 million pieces very often.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you for a second opportunity. Those helpful questions and those resonations prompted a couple more questions for me. A part of what you just described for this contract in particular is for them to, this rock salt company, to review your drawings and your cost estimate and to check its reality, check its accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair statement, right? So again, these guys have to get up to speed on what we're doing. And there are 680 sheets in the drawing set, and there's 570 pages in the specs. So whether it's now or during construction, them as the construction management company needs to understand the project and understand the details. And so we're asking them to, one, get up to speed, two, look through it, and based on their experience, are there any things that we've missed or that we could change or modify? And then the cost, again, since they've been doing this for many, many years, of taking a look at it and saying, hey, look, your cost for, pick a thing, a retaining wall is way out of whack. Our experience is this. So again, it's really to truth out and to validate what we're doing.
Thank you. How is that different from the peer review that you did 2.5 years ago?
So the peer review was sort of this, but really, quite a bit different. It's an apples to oranges comparison. So the peer review, what we did at that point, if you recall, the project had a tunnel under the runway and had a very complex bridge. So what we did for the peer review, and we had a cost estimate that we thought was woefully low. That cost estimate was $60 million for a really crazy design, in our opinion. So we brought SGM and Flatiron Construction, an engineering firm and a contractor, in to review the old design, the tunnel, and then the concrete segmented bridge style. And we asked them to take a look at the cost estimate and also the design. And then also, if we were going to change the design, would it be engineering feasible in an engineering perspective and also from the construction perspective? So now we have this, which is an actual design that we've modified based on that input. So not quite true comparisons of what we did in the peer review.
Or if this is fair, perhaps tangerines and oranges, that was a larger scale review with larger scale adjustments. This is more fine tuning.
Correct. That was the 100,000 foot level. This is a 1,000-foot level.
Great.
Or
Can I add to that, please? So we had them do that because we got a price from Jacobs. It was like $60 or $65 million for this project. We thought it was closer to 100. So the question is are we right? Are they right? How is this all going to function? If we change the drawings and we go through the effort, because it was a lot of effort to get them to agree to these changes that we had for the drawings. Is it worthwhile time-wise and money-wise? Basically said, okay, it really is $100 to $120 million bridge and project. We got that right. Let's start moving over here and say, okay, if we redesign this thing, which Ashley did basically and handed it to them, they said, okay, yeah, you're now closer to an $80 million project and you've cut an entire year off of it. So when we say that, we say, okay, it is now worth it because we can't afford a $110 million bridge, but we're getting really close with an $80 million bridge to make this project actually happen, which has been going on for decades. So that's why we did that, is basically we try to truth out how much is the thing really going to cost in current design. How much are we going to save, if anything, in time and money if we redesign this thing? Because we had to step back and spend more money and more time to get it to where it needed to be, which is where we are right now. And I think Roxall is really going to take some time and save Councilor Schmall another day and a half, 3 days of his time and give us hey, the spec 206 needs to be rewritten, or this needs to be done, or these two are conflicting to each other. But while they're doing that, they're also learning the project, which they have to do anyhow, unless we get to that end goal, which is hopefully September when we get a bid in, and it's $110 million. So we have to keep doing these steps to get to where we want to go and prove out that, okay, is this a $60 million bridge? Is it a $70 million bridge? Is it an $80 million bridge? We feel pretty good about the numbers we have right now, but they'll help us pick out those little nuances in there, which several very good comments, by the way. Thank you. Several of them we already had, several of them we didn't think about, but they'll help us fine tune a few of those little things so that's less confusing for the contractor to bid on. That's the goal.
Thank you both. That's very helpful. This sounds like smart work to get down to more refined levels. And thanks to Councilor Schmall for going across town to do all that homework. Those are a lot of sheets to review. Final question, you listed the new definition or the confirmed definition of obligation. Final drawings, final environmental assessment, final right-of-way acquisition. Is the environmental assessment finished?
It is, yeah. So it's just being cleaned up, finalized, and will be submitted to CDOT and FHWA for final review. So we're probably a month out for a final stamped, signed version that's, let's say, released for the public. But all that's is done. Again, it's in final review at Jacobs, and then will soon be submitted to the reviewing agencies for their final check.
This is a little gratuitous, but we were told in August and September that we couldn't consider changes to the project, in particular, possibility of a traffic controlling toll, because we couldn't disrupt the EA. And yet here we are still finishing it.
So that is, so yeah, we don't have a toll, and it wasn't because of the EA. What it was is adding a toll at this point in the project. FHWA said that was a significant change that would kick us back to the start of the EA. And just to clarify, what we're doing now is not a new EA, it's a reevaluation. So this is basically confirming the findings of the EA that has been going on now for 18 years.
Thank you again. And all around, thank you.
Councilor Schmall.
I do commend you guys on the work that you've done. This is that job has the most extensive attempt at mitigating utility conflicts that I've ever seen. I mean, congratulations, because that's a horrendous liability to the project, to the finances of the project, to the timing of the project. The worst things that can go wrong are going to go wrong underground. So congratulations at that tremendous effort. Even having said that, there's still, I'll bet, a 20% hit rate that you didn't find. And so I keep having those kind of concerns. Everybody thinks about this as being a bridge job. Only 30% of those 680 drawings involve the bridge. Okay, this is not a bridge job. Again, I commend the work you've done. I'm still not convinced it's the right project.
Thank you. If I see no more comment, I will.
Can I say one more thing?
We
I'm
could
sorry, I know we
stop
keep
this.
rejoining. I just want to say, we've never built an $80 million project. That's why we need Roxol. They do $500 million projects and they help CDOT with them. So that's why we're really like Roxol. We'd really like to get them on board to help us with the things we haven't thought of and make sure this project is successful.
Right. Thank you, man. Councilor Townsley.
Two quick questions. Again, excuse me, because they're probably obvious to you guys, but when they review these plans and go, I think they probably know at this point, if we go back and say it's $120 million bridge, we're going to say, no, we don't want to do that. If it's a $70 million bridge, they're going to go, okay, this seems to be what everybody's looking for. Aren't they incentivized to be part of that project to go, yeah, let's get this going and we'll worry about these other things later? Or is that a naive comment?
So when you say they, you referring to
Whoever this engineering group is going to give us a second set of eyes that's going to be involved in it.
Well, Roxol understands very well that we don't have an infinite bag of money. And if the project is too expensive, the project's a no-go, and therefore their project they bid on is not there. So
exactly,
you know,
that's why I'm wondering, do they have any incentive to say, yeah, you're all good to go here?
I guess there's a level of comfort associated with Roxol and SGM because I know personally like half of the people in the Roxol program, and they've been working with us through CDOT. They're all ex-CDOT employees. So I don't think that they're going to come in and say, yay, it's a $120 million project, but we're going to lead you into an $80 million thought process. That's why they're here. They're going to help us decide that this is a viable project, that our numbers are correct, that the specs are all correct, the drawings are correct, so that we can move forward with this program. I feel really comfortable with this team. And
Okay,
just randomly happen to know half of them.
That answers
because we're ex-CDOT employees.
and really, regardless of what Roxol says about the cost, if they say, hey, look, it's $40 million, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Well, we're going to go out to bid and get bids from contractors that will be the ultimate decider once we finally get actual costs. So I don't know if Roxol has any real motivation one way or the other than trying to give us the true information.
Okay. And then the last question, and this one seems to be I can never quite get an answer to this, but when is the city's obligation? When do we say, yes, we like this project, we like, we're not worried about the fact that nobody wants to participate in it other than ourselves. We're happy bonding whatever this number is going to be. When is that going to fit into this whole time frame between now and when it starts?
Well, I'll let maybe Steve answer a few of those, but just to recall our other partners. So, RAFTA is in for $4 million.
Right.
CDOT has dedicated $4.5 million. And then we have the federal grant. So, I don't know when the rubber hits the road, so to speak, and when we ultimately make that decision. But again, we are coming up close to some decisions. And so obviously that's purchasing right away. I think really what we have to understand, and I think really the key is once we know that we have the federal grant, I think that's a pretty big indicator of where we are from the funding perspective.
But at some point you're going to come to us and you're going to say, go spend this money. We want to spend this money. You guys bless it. That's kind of, what are the remaining steps to get to that point?
Well, unfortunately, there are still some steps to get to that point, but we need to bid this. We need to get bids back. And when
Can't
we
make a decision with that.
right, when we're there, then I can bring a financing proposal to you guys. And then I think it's decision time at that point. But we still have a little ways to go.
But that's after we get a hard bid back. Okay.
Yeah, because we have $58 million plus or minus dedicated to us right now. If it's a $70 million project, and there's a $12 million gap, we'll have to figure out how to finance that. That's probably not that big a deal. If it's an $85 million project, we'll have to sit down and have that conversation of, can we finance this? And is it worthwhile to do that for that additional extra money? So we need those bids back.
So I understand that some of us may have a lot of questions about this, but I just want to point out that all we're really doing is talking about the master service agreement for the Southbridge Construction Management to see if we want to let these guys help us finish out the drawings. So I just want to remind everybody, because we had like 4 rounds of questions and I'm seriously considering changing the format so we stick to less than that, because this is drawing out and I don't want to do this anymore. So please stick to what we're doing.
It's $80 million, I think.
No. It's $100,000 for a master service contract at this point. If you guys want to have an update on the bridge and chat about the bridge, let's have a work session. That's where I'm at. And with that, I will call for the question.
No, Counselor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. No, Counselor Schmall. Yes, Counselor Smith. Yes, Counselor Schachter. It passes 5-2.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Moving on, financial policy for speeding violations.
No, I think we're going to hear from Yvette on this one.
Do you need help?
No. I might need help walking. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Council. Yvette Gustad, Finance Director. What you have before you is just our, as you know, we implemented the speed cameras. We want to be transparent about what we're doing. The state guidelines are pretty vague of what we can spend the money on, but we really want to be transparent here, show people where the money's being spent. So we've drafted a policy that basically states what we can and cannot spend this money on. Mostly it's going to be transportation and public safety and traffic improvements. So these are just the ideas behind that. Some of the things just to point out, this is really making a difference. Lee pulled some numbers for us, and of the 85% before and after the speeds. So basically, like on, I gotta get my bearings here, which camera is which here. Where's the big one? Sorry. So for instance, the one coming into Glenwood, the speed before was 56 miles an hour average at the 85%, and now it's 47 miles an hour. So it is making a difference. The other ones are like from 36 to 28 in that area, and then 33 to 25. So it is slowing people down, which is great. I know I follow people into work every day, and I am seeing a huge difference in the speed that's coming in. One of the things that we don't have in here, so this is, again, to promote public safety, transparency, and accountability. So we're setting up a totally separate department within the general fund that will track all the expenses so that we can see exactly where these monies are being spent and they're not just hidden somewhere in one of the other departments. Some of, like, again, the allowable uses of revenue first will be the cost of the program, and then traffic and transportation improvements, public safety initiatives, technology and infrastructure. Prohibited uses, general government operations unrelated to public safety, non-transportation capital projects, special entertainment events, any expenditures reasonably connected to improving traffic safety are not reasonably, sorry. And then oversight, again, it'll be in our budget. And the next thing we're going to have on here is actually adopting that budget for this. And then also we'll be reporting statistics of the money coming in, how much, you know, again, we don't get a lot of this. And even though at this point we have issued $1,062,000 in tickets, we won't see all that money. And they take $12 a ticket. It's $2,500 a month for the actual cameras. And then, of course, a lot of it we probably will never see. To date, DACRA has collected 585,000 of that portion. 416 is ours, less the cost of the cameras. So with that, any questions?
Less than the cost of the cameras?
Pardon?
So for something, and then you still got to take the cameras off of that.
$2,500
A month.
A
Okay,
month.
got it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Yvette.
Mhm.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
Do we anticipate publishing like regular reports on this, maybe quarterly reports?
Yeah, I think one of the things in here is that we would do reports timely, occasionally, sorry.
I'm just thinking there are so many questions around this, and
Yes.
there's a lot of skepticism around, you know, the motivations, the efficacy. I think that if we can start to promote the real tangible impacts, I think that would be helpful. So if we can find a way to do that.
If I may, we also have a statutory requirement that is going to be part of this policy to report number of tickets and the amount actually collected. So that kind of goes into that transparency and where is it going and what's going on.
I understand that, and I'm thinking we could probably do even better than that, you know, do something like graphic and talk about the different locations and how it's having an impact on those locations. And at one point we talked to Lee Barger about, you know, doing a traffic flow analysis and if this has had any impact on that. You know, there's this like anecdotal impression that it has, but it'd be nice to see if there's any data that supports that. So, you know, I'm wondering if we can just do, you know, a really kind of good job in, you know, vetting this so that people can feel more comfortable with the decision that was made.
Sure.
Thank you. Counselor Small.
Going further with Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski's comments, I would recommend that we keep our options as open as possible for where to spend these funds and spend a little bit more on the cost of administration on the transparency side and be able to say, you know, here's our statistics like you just gave us. Traffic has on average slowed down this much in these areas and put that out there on our website so people can see it and spend the money on that positive affirmation of what this has done for us, because that really is, I think, the way we came to that decision, because the cost benefit analysis says this is a good thing because these cost this much less than 2 more police officers on the street.
Right.
Not that we don't still need 2 more police officers on the street, but that's what I've used as my defense of having voted for these speed cameras, is that it's way cheaper than a $200,000, $300,000 a year police officer. And I want the enforcement. It was effective. So,
both good comments.
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Counselor Smith.
Thank you, Yvette. Just want to be sure I was writing fast enough to get the numbers right, because these are pretty impressive numbers. $585,000 have been actually paid. Is that what collected
Yes.
means?
Yeah.
And that's out of 1.6 million worth that
Not
have been-
1.6, 1,062,000, not
1
1.6
million.
million.
essentially $1 million worth that have been issued.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, and we do expect the number to go down. I mean, this does look huge, but this again is in the beginning. And we do expect as people learn and know these things that these numbers will drop and it won't look this big.
Thank you.
So quick question, what can't we or shouldn't we do with this money? Are we limited by certain, I don't know, Colorado statute, I guess? What should not happen here?
We're not really limited by statute. I mean, we have, wide discretion. I think best practice is for us to have a policy and reinvest the funds back into traffic safety, which was the purpose of this, and public safety. So the policy that we've put together does not allow us to spend money on unrelated things to public safety. We can't build parks, right? We can't just balance our general fund. It has to be spent within those guidelines, and that's based on traffic and public safety. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Would I know you don't like those, but would an intergovernmental, what do you call it? No, I'm sorry. What do you call it? No,
Interfund cost.
That's it. Yeah. What if something like that was in there to help out a little bit on there? I know, I'm just, me in the general fund.
I am right there with you. I think we'd have to give that one some thought. We would have to, be able to tie it specifically to a cost.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, this department is in the general fund. So it would be interfund cost of servicing from the general fund to the general. fund.
So the money's already there, but you could have a different use of it. Let's say portion of salaries for traffic engineers or other traffic cop. I don't
That's
know. Does
exactly
that-
right.
Does that,
Exactly right.
could that work?
Yeah, and that's what we've got in the appropriation ordinance that you're about to hear about.
Okay. So this is a financial, what do you need from us on item 10 tonight? Let's see if we want to move forward with this.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
And then remember, if it goes, this is changeable anytime. It's not something that's set in stone, so you can certainly adjust this policy at any time.
Okay, excellent. Counselor Weimer.
Move to approve the financial policy for speeding violations as presented.
Excellent. Motion to approve, entertaining a second. Mayor
Second.
Pro Tem Zelinski.
Second.
Second, thank you. Motion is second to approve item 10 tonight. Any more discussion on this? Counselor Smith.
This is very helpful to have such a detailed draft prepared to get this build this conversation from. Always is a good head start, and I appreciate all the thought and research kind of cross-referencing the regulations and such. This is a significant source of revenue, new relatively, and not fully anticipated at the time of budgeting even. So it is a very exciting possibility to do creative things and to do things that we might not have thought were possible before. Looking at the draft list, maintenance and operation of the system is just obvious, I think. I hadn't thought of it, but I love the possible addition of telling that Councilor Schmal noted of spending some of this money to tell the world about the success, especially the speed reduction success, but also to tell the creative things that are being done with the money. I definitely like the notion on the second page of this categorical portion, spending money on police, fire, EMS, training for officers, public educations about better driving habits, pedestrian awareness. Those are kind of new initiatives that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Data systems. I'm pretty stalled on the traffic and transportation improvements list, pretty much top to bottom, because it reads a whole lot like 2A. The city, in advance of the election on the Streets and Infrastructure Fund, tax renewal and expansion, and then the campaigners during that, went to great length to clarify that the streets and infrastructure needs were carefully projected and would be covered by this new funding, and that no additional city funding would be needed. Certainly, we're going to use grants, we're going to team up on that sort of stuff. But the city income committed was to be sufficient. And as we saw again tonight, that money is being spent brilliantly and to great effect and accelerating those streets and infrastructure improvements and repair and maintenance. And as much as I love everything on here, crosswalk upgrades, signal timing improvements, trail improvements, engineering and survey work to accelerate new projects, this really is, I fear, in the view of people who narrowly approved the Streets and Infrastructure Fund, redundant, a repeat, right? Not so much redundant as a repeat. And I think I think it's in bad faith to spend this new money on something that we just barely got approved a year or so ago from the citizens. So I would take out that traffic and transportation improvements portion, rely on the Streets and Infrastructure Fund instead, and be able to wholeheartedly brag about that success, and then to brag about the success of this new money being used in new ways beyond that Streets and Infrastructure Fund. Couple of possibilities. I suggest we look at seriously at putting some transit improvements in this package instead. Transportation, safety related. We need a more diversified and more extended local transit service. I, for one, think there's going to be a conversation soon about the city of Glenwood Springs contributing to the Raft to Hogback service. Just as possibilities, parking management and parking potential paid parking and the ramifications for that is coming back into play just now, coincidentally. Potential of using this new money to improve parking facilities and to provide parking incentives that reduces car traffic also, I think, fits in this new creative category. So I think there are other ways to do traffic and pedestrian and bicycle and access safety measures without repeating what we already are doing with the 2A. So my recommendation would be to do everything on here except for that portion and backfill that with more transparency and transit and parking and other creative traffic solutions. Thank you very much.
Councilor Schachter.
Thank you, Councilor Smith, and I do have great respect for the amount of time and effort you put into our traffic system, but I would disagree at this point. I think we've got a pretty simple, manageable system, and the only thing I could see changing is maybe changing one word: traffic and transportation safety, because you've outlined some very creative but very broad, maybe beyond the scope of this, whereas that one section emphasizes safety all the way down the line, whether they're implemented or not. I think that's consistent. So maybe changing one word, but I fear that we may drift too far, and I'd be supporting it initially and see what happens.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? If I see none, I will call for the question. The motion is to approve as it stands.
Yes, Councillor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Councillor Weiner. Yes, Councillor Schmal. No, Councillor Smith. Yes, Councillor Schachter. It passes 6-1.
Thank you, Ryan.
Can't see the number.
Can you light it up on the board?
Didn't she hear it? Wasn't I loud enough?
We have to see it.
There's so many things to say around.
I left the door wide open.
Item 11, ordinance 2026-06, first appropriation to the budget, to the 2026 budget, one reading. This is it. This is the only ordinance we got.
But this again is just budgeting and creating this new department for this speed camera money. So this, again, it's just kind of an estimate of where we think we might fall. Basically the cost of like the code enforcement person who's reviewing all the tickets, things like that, part of the traffic safety engineer, and then part of a actual dedicated traffic officer. Also then the municipal judge has had it expense because now we've added another day of court for him to go through the traffic, and then just the cost and administration of the program itself. And then along with this, included also in this ordinance is what you talked about earlier, the right of way for Southbridge.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll see none. Anybody from the public? This is an ordinance. Any comments from the public? Also see none. We'll close the public portion. I'll bring it back to council. I'm entertaining a motion in ordinance 2026-06, first appropriation to the 2026 budget. Go, guys. Not working. Oh, there it is. Mayor Pro Tem Zielinski.
I move to approve ordinance 2026-06, the first appropriation to the 2026 budget.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Looking for a second. Councilor Weimer.
Enthusiastic second.
Enthusiastic second. Excellent. Motion and a second to approve ordinance 2026. Any discussion? Councilor Smith.
Again, appreciate the thoughtful effort put into this to try to find ways to not only fit the requirements, but also to serve the community well. I don't think this list does it. A handful of reasons. It's, again, as we discussed earlier, or as I offered earlier during previous discussion, I think it's premature to be spending money on the South Bridge project when we don't know it's fully funded or where it's going, or yet even what it definitely costs. So to commit this amount of money from a new fund that should be for creative opportunities doesn't seem right. The notion of putting money into these code enforcement, traffic engineer, and traffic officers does indeed at first glance seem to fit the bill for what we're trying to accomplish with traffic safety. But I'm uncomfortable with using this money to backfill, as I read it, positions that have already been funded in the existing budget. We approved a budget for the current fiscal year that had these people in it. So to come back now, which presumably was based on having the money in place to do that then, to take this new money and backfill seems like a missed opportunity compared to doing new and creative work. I definitely am uncomfortable somehow with using this money for the, I think, appropriately requested increase in pay to the municipal judge. I do think that request from the judge at a work session 2 weeks ago was poignant, was clear, and seems fair. It just feels a little conflicting to use money in effect collected by that judge to pay the judge. I know that judge, and there's no hanky panky going on, but the outside impression of that situation makes me uncomfortable. So for all those reasons, I think this is the wrong package and needs to be redone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Townsley.
Based on Councilor Smith's comments, did I misunderstand or misread that as far as those positions? Didn't we basically add human resource cost by having people review these tickets and process them and whatnot? So isn't that what we're doing with this versus taking people that were already in the budget? I thought this was new people.
Some of it's new. Our person that's reviewing all the tickets is a brand new employee. We used to only have 2 code enforcement officers. We now have 3 because she has taken over all the traffic. So that is a new position. And then, excuse me, and we did move part of a traffic cop there because he spends all of his time in traffic duties and felt this was a fair place to do that, allow.
This is new though. I mean, it's not like he didn't have this job last year when we were doing the budget. This is something new that we're asking from him. I mean, I guess I don't see where this is backfilling. This is wrong. Like we're taking somebody that we're already paying. I just want to make sure I've got it right.
So we're adding 1 new FTE, which is Casey, right? We have a traffic engineer in Lee who was paid from the engineering department in the general fund. We're taking 25% of that money and moving it to traffic safety because that's our estimate of what he spends on only traffic safety. And we're doing the same thing with a traffic patrol officer who spends 75% of his time only on traffic safety. So I think the backfilling comment refers to a smaller spend in the police department in the general fund and the engineering department in the general fund and replacing it here, which is where it belongs. I mean, these are direct costs to the initiative that we're trying to pull together. And as far as the judge goes, again, that is a direct cost of the program. I mean, to me, these are laydowns.
Thank you, Steve. Council Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Steve Boyd said it better than I can, but that's exactly the point that I was going to try and make. These are direct administrative costs to the program, which is exactly how we said we were going to spend this money.
Thank you. Council Schachter.
Just a clarification. I don't know if I understood Counselor Smith, but anything related to Southbridge is coming out of A&I. It has nothing to do with the
Correct.
speed cameras. And my other question is the right-of-way acquisition. When is that committed and paid as opposed to the approval of the project? Where timing wise, when does that money leave us and go to right-of-way?
Yeah, this is a Southbury. So we have those offers out. So if accepted, we're gonna write checks. So we have to complete right-of-way acquisition to move the project forward. So those funds need to be spent now.
And
That's why they're in the budget.
if the project does not move forward, where does that right-of-way sit in terms of an asset of the city or not?
If it is, if we're acquiring in fee, we own that property once that acquisition is completed. As far as the temporary easements and things like that, they kind of have a
Go away.
lifespan,
Right.
but it is what it is.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Small.
What's the timeline for accepting the offers that have been made for the right-of-way?
Yeah, as you know, they have to go through a separate firm. TRS is doing the offers. I think they're probably in the negotiating window, which is about 60 days. So once they're out there, we're obligated to make them. They have a certain amount of time to consider them before they respond back to us. So that would be about where we're at. And obviously, if we're moving the project forward and those offers aren't accepted, we can always move forward with you would see a resolution for condemnation, and we would be able to take we would be able to take immediate possession even while we were discussing questions around value. So either of those conditions meet the requirements of having right-of-way closed.
Let me restate to make sure I understood. So we don't actually need the money for another 30 to 60 days?
We could need the money tomorrow if somebody decides to accept the offer, or we could need it in 30 to 60 days. So that's kind of those offers are out there. If somebody says, yep, that one works for me, let's cut a check, we would need the money tomorrow. It could be 30 to 60 days.
But there's 3 separate entities that have to accept offers in order to have the right-of-way.
There are in fee, yes, there are, I believe, 3 entities that we need to obtain right-of-way from, either through immediate possession or through consummating a deal and transfer of title.
So we could end up with part of a right-of-way.
No, because I can always go to court and get the rest of the right-of-way.
But that'll be another 60 or 90 days down the road.
Yeah, it's about 60 days from filing to possession on an immediate possession hearing.
So we could, until we know we have the whole deal, we don't have to pay for any of the deal.
If somebody accepts an offer tomorrow, we have to write a check.
But there's no timeline on that? We have to write it tomorrow?
Well, once you make a bona fide offer, if somebody accepts it, you're obligated to write the check. Yes. That's kind of an offer and acceptance. That's how that.
Councilor Townsley.
2 things. One, the speed camera, the traffic enforcement, whatnot, I'm totally fine with all of that. I guess I didn't realize that you had committed us to a $2 million offer on something for a project that we don't know how much it's going to cost. And we haven't decided if, yes, this is where we want to go forward. Did I miss something in here?
I think we've had this conversation a number of times. I can't remember all of the dates off the top of my head regarding the requirement that we obtain right-of-way before we can finalize and move forward with the rest of the project.
Because I assume that we would be finding out what the cost of that would be before we made an offer and said, okay, if this bridge comes in at 100 million, we don't do the bridge, but we're out $2 million on an offer that we made.
There is a bit of a chicken and an egg problem here, is that we can't go out and find out if it's an $80 million bridge until we close on right of way and have possession of right of way. So those are Counselor Small has worked with CDOT projects as well, and that's just kind of like, that is the sequence you have to go through on a federally funded project.
Okay, excellent. Any other, what do we have? We have, that's right. A motion to approve ordinance 2026-06 and a second for that. If I don't see any more comments, I'll call for the question.
Yes, Counselor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. No, Counselor Schmal. No, Counselor Smith. Yes, Counselor Schachter. It passes 5-2.
Thank you, Ryan. That concludes our discussion and our actions for tonight. And we're going to do council comments. We're going to start. Thank you, Yvette.
Thank you.
Start with Counselor Smith.
Thank you for the invitation now and for the guidance earlier on the Climate Action Organization proposed letter for co-signing to the governor and to the state legislature calling for guardrails on data centers. Would the council like either an officer of the council or me as our delegate to that board to sign this letter?
Thank you. Counselor Smith, any more discussion on this from the rest of council? Any bites on this? Any? Counselor Small?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to render an opinion one way or another on this, Counselor Smith, but as a representative, I would defer to your judgment on it.
What do we as the city know about this? Looking at your face is not a whole lot.
No, the city really hasn't been involved in this.
Is this something we should chat about? I mean, I understand there's a water resource issue with data centers and all that kind of stuff. And is this something we should be concerned with?
I think writ large, yes. On this specific issue, I haven't reviewed it. I couldn't tell you on, in the moment. Are there significant issues with data center and water usage? Absolutely.
Right.
But
So okay, follow up, is this something we should review? Because this is, Councilor Smith, say it again, this is for western Colorado or what?
No, it's all of Colorado.
All of Colorado.
Communities for Climate Action is a statewide organization. And if I can offer maybe a companion thought. I think that, there's very little chance of a data center coming to really maybe even this county, certainly not to this town. I guess I'm seeing this as one of those opportunities where members of this organization, more probably on the Eastern Plains, may be subject to these proposals. And this is a letter signing of solidarity with the full membership of that organization.
Okay, thank you. I could see some importance to this because of water usage is my main approach here. But I don't want to burden you guys with reviewing this
and I don't know, Councilor Smith, what the timing is that this needs to go out.
They didn't put a timing on it, but it is intended to, there are 3 or 4 data center bills pending. And this would be part of this organization's response to committee hearings and such like that.
I might suggest, I know I hate to always kick the can, but
I know.
Since you guys haven't had a chance to look at it, I guess what I'd suggest is have counselors take a look at it, see where you think you're at. And if you want to move it forward, we move it forward in 2 weeks.
Would you be okay with that?
I'd be
Councilor?
happy with that.
Okay, excellent.
Especially if you want me to more tangibly ask for that to be an agenda item and invite you all to review the letter and let me know if you need more information. Because I'm happy to get that information from the organization if you have more questions in the meantime.
I think that sounds like a plausible way forward.
Thank you.
To me. Thank you. Counselor Schmal.
I think it'd also be useful to know where membership in the Colorado Municipal League stands on this issue in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely. And also check in with CAST. We're going to have, we're down with legislators in Denver next week. So we'll do both those checks and we can report back.
Excellent. Counselor Schachter, comments?
No, thank you.
Counselor Weimer. Good. Counselor Townsley. Please.
one, I guess, is a question to the rest of the council. Is there anybody else here besides myself that would be interested in if we get a counter offer back on that $2 million or whatever it is for all these pieces, that we get some knowledge of that before we have the city attorney negotiate this for us to amounts unknown? Is there a cap on what you're, I mean, it just bothers me that.
Yeah, no, you guys would
finding
be,
out
yeah.
about this
I mean,
here.
and I should back up that, that process, we have to make an offer based on an appraised value, right?
Okay.
So we don't get to pick the number. It is based on the appraised value. They get their own appraisal, and that's when the negotiation ensues. We would absolutely come back to you guys if it is a number other than the appraised number, which it will be, and we'll come back to you guys on those cost numbers. But that floor that gets set for us by statute is the appraised value. We have to make that offer.
But, and I guess maybe I don't understand the process well enough, but to me, that's, $100,000 to get to a bid process is one thing, $2 million to buy something that would have no use to us whatsoever, although I guess the other wouldn't either. If at this point, I would like to hear back before we go any further on that, unless they just come back and say, sure, you can have it for 2 million, then I guess we bought ourselves a piece of land.
Yeah, like I said, I that statutory process just kind of drives us. So happy to come back with those numbers when they come in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a couple more comments.
Sure, please.
Something that came up when, I'd say Hooner, but I guess we should say Mr. Gillespie came in there. And I've thought about this on some other things too, but and you mentioned this as far as the GID overlay and whatnot. Are we happy with the fact that people are going to develop downtown with no parking? And to me, it's not a rhetorical question. I'd actually like people to respond to me. And then two, should we be doing something about it or finding out what we should do about it before, if this piece of land that he's talking about over there, if they put 20 plus units on it with no parking.
Can I stop you?
Sure.
I hate to do this to you.
No.
I'm going to do one of those. This is a pending land use application, so I can't actually have the conversation that you want to have in the moment. I think writ large, the question of parking downtown and requirements on parking is absolutely something we could come back and talk about. I just can't talk about it in the context of this project in this moment. Does that make sense?
Can I talk about it without the context of this project?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to talk about just,
Great. Just
development, if we want to revisit development in downtown with or without parking, I think that's fine. I just, as long as we steer away from this project.
I'll steer away from that. I didn't realize it was going to be a land use thing, but
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Just went to the planning commission last week.
Okay, so I would say that we should seriously look at what do we want for parking downtown for development. There's a ton of property downtown that could be developed. And I think we should try to get ahead of that before somebody comes in and, we have proposals in front of us, not this one. That's at other things downtown. We should look at that and make sure, if this policy is put in place in the 80s or 60s or whenever it was put in place, I don't know when it was. The city was a different place then. And I don't think I want to see a huge amount of development downtown with no parking, because every time I go down there, I can't find a parking spot. If I owned a business down there, I wouldn't be very pleased with council going, yeah, let's just build the city out and have no parking. So I would hope that maybe, Counselor, we've had a couple people who said, let's look at some things, but I think this should be high on our list of something that, once that cat's out of the bag and people are doing things, I think we need to address it. I think, some feedback from DDA, some feedback from the chamber, some feedback from people that live down there.
If I may,
I'd like to just finish.
If I may, would you be okay to ask council, since this is the comment section, we can initiate things, would you be okay if we start kicking this, let's say, to the P&Z and then to the Transportation Commission and have them do the legwork on downtown parking and maybe add the 1.6 parking spaces requirement to review this and start I hate this word, robust process of reviewing our parking requirements for development and the GID.
I think the more people you have working on it, the better.
But
would I say kick it off to somebody else and just be good with whatever they come back with? No.
No. That's not how it works.
Cool.
We have the Transportation Commission and we have the P and Z, and those to me stand out as the experts in what we're trying to achieve. I agree. I think we should review it, but we don't know. Let them that deal with this, let the P and Z that knows the code.
And that's what I'm saying. I realize the code's written the way it is. Maybe if P and Z looks at it and goes, you guys should maybe change this code.
That's where I'm going. That's the idea. Let's start with the commissions that can actually work on this with their expertise and the P and Z specifically with the knowledge of the code and the community development department and the engineering at some point, and say, all right, let's review this. Let's give them a couple of meetings or a couple of workshops to get through this, and then come back to us and say, this is what we found.
Okay. Let's
Because
get that
they're
together.
the experts. We're just going, yeah, we don't like park. I mean, we want parking, but we need to make sure if it makes sense or what the thought behind this. What the answer is. There you go. So we have, if you ask us that, I'm sure you can get support.
Sure, let's do that. Let's start there.
So, okay, but just so we know, he's asking for support. Okay, let's do this. I heard you support it. I support it. Can we start the process of reviewing, parking, GID and the 1.6? I think that's important. Absolutely, Council Schachter.
I think out of respect to the process, and particularly to Councilor Townsley, I think we should go a little further and perhaps email or draft specific queries that we want, not just, study downtown parking, because it's complicated about existing buildings versus new Spaceville. I would suggest that Councilor Townsley and any of us say, yeah, we want to review downtown GID. Here are specific considerations we'd like to be addressed, not just parking in general. It might give a little bit more structure to what we're asking.
But in general, you're also in favor that we
Yes,
should
absolutely.
review this. Okay.
Absolutely.
I think that's all direction. That is great to start with something here. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilor Downsley, for reviving this. Late as it is timely nonetheless. I like the idea of revisiting what's going on with parking policy downtown. I would suggest a notably different approach. I would not take on the parking per unit number in particular, because that presumes that's necessarily a detail that we maybe are going to delegate to other people. I guess I would note the coincidental interest in downtown parking management. I'd note two things that are already in play that we could maybe take advantage of instead. One of them is the revived interest in parking management and perhaps paid parking downtown, as evidenced by the Financial Advisory Board heavily engaging in it. I would kind of follow their lead, presumably as they are in consultation with public safety, and see where that takes us. Transportation Commission is indeed interested in participating. They don't want to be the lead. They just wanted to leverage that. The second avenue that I would suggest that this review include is a review of the General Improvement District and its history of success compared to its original intentions. As I understand it, stated simplistically, it was to create a revenue source in a specified area that either exclusively or among other things was to build parking structures. And that hasn't happened, or it hasn't generated enough money to do that. I guess I would focus on those two, the long-standing GID and what reform it may need, and the current interest led by the Financial Advisory Board in parking in general, without getting into code details just yet.
Okay, so there's another facet to this. Can you guys maybe just come up with, okay, excellent.
Yeah.
I think that works. Councilor Townsley.
And I'm happy to, voice my concerns in writing and maybe like we talked about at the work session, something else, if you can just share those with everybody else and they can make comments or not make comments. The parking one is a big one. I did have one more. It's getting late, but just, if we're going to start putting things out to committees, which is probably a good idea, I would also like to have the ComDef and whoever else is involved, when we start looking at projects coming into town, large projects especially, I've heard 2 or 3 times, and not really why I've been on council, but in watching council meetings previously and whatnot, where council was up here and they said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. You've met our guidelines. So we either need to vote to approve this project or, we're going to get sued and we're going to lose anyway. And I would hate to think that we're going to be in that position down the road. And I would like to look at things to where does our community development people, do they have stuff in place? Do P&Z have stuff in place that if somebody comes in and says, we want to build a 300 unit apartment building and we've met all your criteria and we've got a piece of land to do it on, do we have something besides we don't like the way this fits in with us? We don't like the way it fits in with the city. Trent has given me some wording on that he says is, this would be your out on this, but I would like to know that we have some other pieces in the toolbox to go, no, we don't have to just go back to the citizens and go, there's nothing we could do about it. We were going to get sued unless we just took it the way it was. So that would be, as we talk to them about some of these things, these are issues that I would want to address.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski.
So I got on council shortly after all of that kerfuffle, and a lot of code changes were proposed and amended at that time to address exactly what your concerns are. So, development is fluid. There was a time when we couldn't get enough development in Glenwood, and a lot of concessions were made to try and enhance that. Then it sat on the books for a little, maybe too long, and then we had to make changes in response to the things that we got. So, it has been ongoing. It is ongoing. Maybe a good place to start would be to ask, like, what changes have been made since some of these unappealing projects have happened, and then ask yourself if you think those are significant enough or if there's more that you would like to see done.
I'd love to get that in work session. The one
Well,
excuse me.
Just real quick, an add-on, and yes, I totally see your concerns. Now, being on the P&Z, the code is your Bible, right? There's nothing, it's black and white. It's very, very black and white. So to your comment, what we did here on Thursday nights is we adjusted some of those approaches of how many units can we get, and we put a couple of, I feel like, fail safes in to, well, if you give us this much, we need to get this much affordable, and so on. So then it kind of became a little bit of a give and take. At least we had a little bit more control, I felt, of what's going on. But where I'm going with this is, would you think that this could be part of the housing policy discussion?
It could be, and the only reason I brought it up was if we're going to have a housing policy discussion, it'd be better to have that after we got some feedback on this from these departments.
I agree. So why don't we let staff come up with a process after hearing all what we're interested in discussing and hearing, and the parking thing, I think you got a point there that we need to start talking about paid parking and parking management downtown with the GID changes and updates that we might be interested in, and even the code rewrites go with that. But what you just said with the 300 potential apartments, I think that's part of the housing policy discussion. So I think we should throw that in with that one. I think that's 2 different avenues we're going to have to go down, I think. But maybe you guys can come up with some sort of how we get there. Out of my experience, I don't know. Steve knows everything, so
I might have to watch some of this again.
okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
not a
work on it.
problem. But anyway, it's all good. It's just we need to find.
Fixed park.
That's right. And then traffic. So we just need to find avenues to how we get them, what makes the most sense efficiently. Councilor Schmall.
Ryan or Matt, either one of you know how many parking spaces are in that parking garage that you're about to start fixing?
96.
There you go.
96.
Is that a guess?
That's the best guess I remember from approving it.
And I only wanted to use that to further this conversation. Theoretically, theoretically, would we want to approve a project that was hypothetically proposed to us that eliminated half of that parking structure? A net parking reduction of roughly half of that parking structure. For
Yeah.
for consideration.
Okay, got it. I think for a second, but I heard you. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky. Nothing. I have no comments myself. I think we went through quite an array of comments tonight. So that was good. City Manager, quick update.
Yeah, a couple quick things. We are at the end of pulling together sort of a longer council, work session and regular session schedule. So if you guys, I've heard from a couple of you, but if you guys have things that you'd like to talk about in a work session or have on a council meeting, email them to me and I'll try to get them included.
But isn't this the process where we have to do it in comments so we can get support, so we don't just talk about somebody's favorite pet project?
No, I mean, I think we're trying to get a list of potential things together so that
Okay.
we can put in
Fair.
front of you guys and you guys can weigh them against each other. Second thing, this is kind of cool. It's probably cooler for me than it will be for you guys, but we have been working hard recently on, sort of the organization culture. And one of the pieces of that has been with the Chapman Foundation. And they have a caring workplace model that we just got awarded. And there are 6 things in here: intentional connection, trust, accountability, culture of learning, appreciation practices, and meaningful work. And to get this, you have to take various steps forward on each of those. Tim has really been carrying the ball for us on this one, and Yvette has had a pretty heavy lift. The other 2 places around here that have it are Pitkin County and Snowmass Village, both of whom are known to be very well-run organizations. So that's kind of cool. The third thing, which I know
It's
is,
very cool.
yeah, it is cool.
No, it really is. Good job.
The third thing that I know is going to be cooler for me than it is for you. I have a son, and that son is in the military, and he is stationed in Hawaii, tough duty. It has been difficult for quite some time for us to find a way to go out and see him and his family and get, my other kids and everybody there. That window opened and it kind of came together quickly, but I will be gone the first week in April to go and do that. So I'll miss the April 1st meeting. So we'll put all the
And
hard
we are
stuff on
very
the-
happy to miss you for
Can we
that.
come with you?
You can say hi right now.
Cool.
Very nice. Very
Congrats.
nice. Good job.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. City Attorney Carl Hanlon.
I don't think I could add anything to what you guys did tonight. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Ryan, any correspondence?
No, sir.
Just what we got in email. Everybody saw it, I think. Mayor Pro Tem Selinsky. Social event?
Yeah, if anybody is in the mood, I think we're going to reconvene at Back Holidays directly after the meeting.
And I am entertaining a motion to adjourn
So moved.
and looking for a second.
Second, I don't know.
You can't do that.
Well, he said so moved too, so.
Don't we have to push buttons?
We do have to push buttons. Don't everybody run away yet. I still need an official second. Push the microphone, please. Commissioner, Council Schachter.
Second.
Thank you. Motion seconded. Motion, oh my God. Motion and a second to
You
adjourn.
still have to push buttons.
I know. Call the question.
Oh, push button?
Yeah.
We have to push the buttons. That's what we're doing.
Protested on all our behalf.
It passes 7-0.